begin with public testimony. If I get order in the hearing room, please, we're going to start public testimony. All right, we're getting back on track. Stretch your legs. Everybody's good.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to begin with public testimony on House Bill 1605. Monitoring charge. Okay, I'm going to call 4 names out. You'll have 2 minutes. We'll have you come forward and we'll get rolling. Yep. Okay. Chair calls Kelsey Kling. Chair calls Tricia Cave. Chair calls Ginger Russell. And Chair calls Elise Eaton.
She was in the overflow room.
All right, Kelsey Kling, Tricia Cave, Ginger Russell, and Elise Eaton. It's 3 out of 4. We're getting there. All right, we got everybody. All right, I show you registered as Kelsey Kling on behalf of Texas AFT. You'll testify on the bill. Oh, there's no bill. You'll testify neutrally. And Tricia Cave from Association of Texas Professional Educators. You'll be testifying as well. Ginger Russell on behalf of yourself as a mom. And Elise Eaton will be testifying on behalf of yourself and as a teacher. So we'll begin with Kelsey.
All right. Good morning, or
Afternoon.
afternoon, evening, wherever we are in the day. Thank you, members, for your continued attention. I have some written testimony I'll pass out, but I'm going to focus my oral on, one aspect of 1605, particularly important to our teachers. We'd just like to voice a little concern that the TEA is leveraging this bill to change teaching standards in ways not intended by this body. At the April meeting of the SBO, State Board for Educator Certification, agency staff presented the board with revised teacher pedagogy standards that were intended in part to implement HB 1605. The bill requires that Texas educator preparation standards include understanding and competence in delivering OER, approved by the SBOE, should they be approved by the SBOE. But TEA proposed to implement this requirement by emphasizing teachers' ability to evaluate and select HQIM in the revised teacher pedagogy standards. Pardon me, a little out of breath. At the same time, TEA proposed to completely remove the existing explicit requirement that teachers know how to design and plan lessons from the standards, and this was over stakeholder objections in that process. The 1605 requires that educator preparation program to prepare candidates on the availability and use of HQIM. It does not require the removal of essential preparation and training needed for teachers to be able to design and plan a lesson. We just want to say that, had these changes to pedagogy standards been allowed to proceed, it really would have resulted in a radical shift in teacher preparation. In removing lesson design from the standards, the proposed rules would have directly steered EPPs, candidates, and districts into using HQIM, though the adoption and use of these materials is strictly voluntary. More importantly, as the approved list of HQIM rolls out, is that 30 seconds? Okay, thank you. I'll just zip forward real fast. So we did support testimony by the Texas Coalition of Educator Preparation and others at the SBEC meeting related to this. We would like to thank the chairman's office for providing clarification on the legislative intent and SBEC for being responsive, but it is nevertheless troubling that a bill with the stated intent of supporting teachers should be interpreted to remove a skill from the pedagogy standards that is a bedrock of the profession.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I'll tell you, we'll do the panel, come back to questions. Is that okay, members? All right. Ginger Russell.
Good morning, committee. My name is Ginger Russell. I am a mother of two college graduates, and I have 10 grandkids being homeschooled. During the 83rd Texas legislative session, I sat before the Senate Education Committee blowing the whistle on the progressive curriculum C-scope, also known as Common Core. It has been over a decade now, and sadly, the progressive pedagogy of C-Scope has reached an all-time high in Texas ISDs. The fact that Texas students are being social engineered in exchange for political power and money is criminal. I yearn for a Texas statesman that would stand up in the midst of this circus for these students and the future leaders of this country. I have yet to find one. The United Nations tentacles are embedded in Texas school districts under the guise of the International Baccalaureate, Social Emotional Learning, Open Education Resources, CRT, also, OER. The term OER was coined by UNESCO in 2002. In 2012, UNESCO adopted the OER Paris Declaration of International Commitment to OER. OER was created to rein in a global curriculum in order to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Why are you, as Texas legislators, allowing UNESCO's agenda to infiltrate our public school system? Why are you turning a blind eye to the indoctrination centers known as our public schools we have today? To make matters worse, Texas legislators want to appear virtuous and concerned about student outcomes while promoting the school choice scam. The school choice has been promoted by globalists Jeb Bush, Bill Gates, and UNESCO for years. There's nothing conservative about it. It all comes down to data collection, control, and power by the elites. If you like Obamacare, you'll love universal school choice. And author journalist Alex Newman states in his book, Indoctrinating Our Children to Death, if freedom is going to survive, it's imperative that Americans become educated on the dangerous agenda of the United Nations Education Agency. Wake up, Texas. That's where we're at now.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. Jackie Bessinger, Frankie Erickson, Susan Scruggs, and Angela Blackburn, you'll be the next panel. We'll move on and we'll do Tricia Cave.
Thank you, Chairman and members, for the time today and for the opportunity to speak on the impacts, both known and unknown, of this piece of legislation. I want to focus my comments today, as Kelsey did, on what I believe to be unintended consequences that we are beginning to see from the passage of HB 1605. Recently, the State Board for Educator Certification, or SBEC, began working on revising TAC Chapter 235. These are the teacher pedagogy standards, which are the foundation of what educator preparation programs are required to teach to their educator candidates. The proposed draft of these standards removed lesson design, which is the critical foundational skill that teaches educator candidates how to build a high-quality lesson that meets the needs of all students. This skill was replaced by lesson internalization. The difference between these two concepts is night and day. One involves an educator using their knowledge of their content, the needs and abilities of their students, and what has been successful for them in the past to develop a lesson that will engage their students in the content. The other, internalization, is simply learning how to memorize content provided to an educator. It does not take into account the many variables in the classroom that a teacher might have to prepare for, nor does it differentiate based on student need. While we do agree that access to a trove of pre-vetted HQIM materials so that teachers do not have to find and vet everything can be a plus, access to these materials is not the same thing as a requirement to push and memorize a single curriculum. When questioned by the board on why this change took place, the reply from TEA staff was that the change was required as part of implementing HB 1605. As I knew that had not been the intent of the bill, and that HQIM is supposed to be optional, I checked in with Chairman Buckley's office, who did confirm that it was not their intent to require lesson internalization. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop. At a minimum, the intent of the bill does need to be explicitly communicated to TEA staff and the members of SBEC and SBOE. We would like to see a cleanup happen to make the optional portions of this bill even more clear so that this does not continue to happen. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Tricia. All right. Elise Eaton. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Elise Eaton. I'm a former Texas public school teacher and also a veteran homeschool parent. 2 of my kids were publicly schooled and 2 were always homeschooled. I'm here to speak about school choice and also about HB 1605. Regarding school choice, as someone said earlier, the Texas Constitution requires the legislature to fund an efficient system of public free schools. It does not require taxpayers to fund the education of every individual child in the state. A more universal and constitutional solution would be to exempt taxpayers from paying school taxes who do not utilize the public school system. Even renters pay school taxes through their rent. A tax exemption could be provided for property owners, and a tax rebate could be provided to parents who are not property owners. A tax reform plan would actually free parents to use their own money to make choices in their child's best interest without growing government bureaucracy. It would also eliminate the opportunity for kickbacks to publishers, vendors, and special interest groups. If you actually want to create an education savings account, then it must allow parents to actually save their money. Tax savings could be used by parents as they choose, including the option to deposit them into a 529 plan that they control. A 529 plan can be used for K-12 education and Save for College, and it already has regulations on how funds can be spent. Your constituents want tax relief. A tax exemption or rebate plan would be universal, immediate, would not require the creation of any new agency or regulations, and would actually free parents to make their own educational choices. Regarding HB 1605, I'm concerned that the approval and review process has been completely gutted. Page 18 says that the instructional materials and technology allotment may be used to purchase instructional materials regardless of whether the instructional materials are on the list of approved instructional materials. Language was removed that said funds must be used to purchase materials on the list adopted by the commissioner.
All right. Thank you very much. Members, any questions for this panel? All right, we appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Chair calls Jackie Bessinger, Frankie Erickson, Susan Scruggs, and Angela Blackburn. Lynn Davenport, Aaron Green, Alice Linehan, and Meg Bakich, you'll be next.
It's
Francine? Oh, I'm sorry, looks like a K.
That was my
You
hand.
didn't know?
Yeah.
You're not ready?
Okay.
Oh, no, I don't have any either.
Woo. All right. Sorry about that, I botched that one.
It's okay.
Just terrible
I was like,
handwriting.
oh, it was early.
Yeah, that's
It was
right.
an early start,
Okay.
and so I was like, well, maybe I did put Frankie.
All right, I have you registered as Jackie Bessinger on behalf of the National Alliance for Education Freedom and yourself. You'll be testifying today. I have you registered as Francine Erickson as a teacher. You'll be testifying on behalf of yourself today. I have you registered as Susan Scruggs. Be testifying on behalf of yourself today. And I have you registered as Angela Blackburn. You'll also be testifying on behalf of yourself today.
That's correct.
Okay, let's begin.
I have provided you with several copies with attachments of
Okay.
all the research that I have done so far with OER, HQIM, Amplified, as well as the deviation that has happened with the state Texas agency. So I want you to look at it as well, because I want to set a strong emphasis on the separation of church and state, aside from my research on what is not really applicable to educational instruction, such as what they're using on OER and the lies about our phonics instruction through the Texas Education Agency. I want to also remind you that the changing of policies need to start here. We are sending our financial funding, our tax money, our traditional methods of instruction are destroyed because you're not applying the proper, you're not looking at the problem. You're creating more problems. We don't need vouchers. We don't need more what would you say? We don't need any more
Policy.
curriculum that is not educational. None of the things that we're looking at, the examples I have provided you, none of them are educational anymore. Everything that is being taken away from us is nothing but globalist. I want you to look at it as said, there's no education anymore. Our kids are not being educated. Everything that your bill has caused so far is disruption. And it's important that you look at it. When people are arguing that it's damaging, it's beyond damaging. And what I have provided to you is further evidence.
All right, thank you very much for your testimony. Francine Erickson.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your time today. I'm speaking on the unintended consequences for House Bill 1605. Research says a literacy approach should combine phonics and whole language into one cohesive curriculum. This interactionist approach is the method that I was taught when I was earning a degree with a specialization in reading. Research says in the early days of OER adoption, research found that there are ways of adopting OER that actually cost more than using commercial materials. In a data sample comparing those not using the piloted OER in 2022 to their scores in 2024, there was a drop in STAR scores. There was a 6% drop in meets grade level and a 10% drop in master's grade level for those school districts using the OER in 2024. These school districts as a whole had no positive outcomes after the investment. In your packet, I have included examples of the Texas Gateway Foundation's OER and Amplify Phonics OER. It is the same foundation. When comparing, they are the same product developmentally and delivery. Examples such as do not refer to any items as letters or by their letter names, simply call them shapes. This program includes phonics instruction, but the instruction differs from phonics usually taught in the United States. Also, reading language arts instructional materials focuses on vocabulary and listening comprehension, not reading in K through 2. Think of your read alouds not with words. Think about not a print environment, but just pictures. My experience in the classroom is that you must have developmentally appropriate materials and approach phonics, a print-rich environment, leveled books, modeling of print concepts, running records, guided reading and enforcing skills taught in class at the student's instructional level, and using books in a planned instructional time. I'm most concerned about the QTI listening comprehension described as STAR-like to be administered kindergarten through second grade every 9 weeks. Why are they using a little used cognitive testing technique with possibilities that could compile AI learning, data mining, and digital IQs from our children every 9 weeks? What can we do? Please amend 1605 to include all of the research-based principles for teaching reading, including protections against the possibility of what the QTI learning management system or other learning management systems could data mine from children. Kindergarten through third grade children and their families are dependent that we get this right. If they are not reading by the end of third grade, it is unlikely they will ever read on grade level. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Angela Blackburn.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I'm here testifying on behalf of myself. I'm currently residing in Tyler ISD, but my parental institutional memory and education is entirely in Huffman ISD. So I am opposed to 1605 and to ESA and vouchers. I've been watching the demise of public education for over 25 years now with my 4 children who all went through Huffman ISD. And what I've learned is that what happened in Huffman is not only happening in Huffman, not only happening in Texas, is happening across the country. So somehow this is by design. And I think the fact that Representative Buckley, you said that you've been hearing a lot from TASA or from, I guess, administrators who in Texas would be mostly TASA administrators, and TEA, Texas Association of School Administrators is who I mean, to say that, to confirm that confirms to me that their future of education is the same. They're wanting the change. They're wanting something, I guess, that's... they're wanting 1605. And because it's such a strong technology bill, and I know that that's not how it's laid out, but that's how it reads, that there's a whole lot of technology in the bill. And the problem with that is just as that they were talking about QR codes and all this, we don't want all our children in their early years before they get out and can even start life, really, for that to follow them for the rest of their lives. There's no chance to make... to repair the damage that's been done for bad decisions that they may have made in school or whatever. But my advocacy started with literally just about recess and lunchtime and why they were reduced, and to why did you stop teaching my son, why are you not teaching my son how to write traditional handwriting in first grade so that they can learn cursive later? That was taken away. Then I learned about C-scope and how that pitted parents and teachers against one another. I believe it was intentional. There's a lot there for me to make that statement, but then now we're going from that got pushed out, but it was never gone because, as someone said, it was Common Core. It is Common Core. It's not so little brother of that, and now we have Amplify. And I don't know if all of you know, I've done the research myself. There is not a single mandated, accredited assessment test in the entire country that is not aligned to the common standards, not one. So that's done by design. I testified in 2016. I testified that here. There's one test that I know of that is they offer for 3rd to 12th grade it is the alternative to the
I need you to wrap up your testimony.
yeah, to the SAT and the College Board. It is the classic learning test. And I have so much more to say.
Okay.
So.
All right, appreciate you being here. Susan Scruggs.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Scruggs. I'm from Montgomery County. I have been working with Conroe ISD down there for several years. My background is primarily corporate America. I was in the computer industry. I started out in training and writing manuals in the computer industry. Then I went into the pharmaceutical industry where I was a regional trainer and wrote all kinds of training materials there. So I do have some education background. I am here to talk about HB 1605. I do not like this bill, and I wanted to bring out some points in it that I saw that were problems. First of all, I read that it removes certain requirements of teachers' duties and creates allotments for instructional materials. And a teacher is the center of a child's life. A teacher is someone who encourages and supports a child, not only in learning complex subjects, but helps them grow and mature. Why would a bill be voted into a law that removes the duties of teachers regarding instructional materials? Teachers at a local level know what the needs are in her classroom and how to present them. This law removes the heart of what teachers love doing, tailoring education to fit the needs of children so that they can be successful. Another issue with HB 1605 is that schools will no longer be able to modify, add, or delete parts of instructional materials. Our local school board recently blocked out some verbiage that did not meet community standards. This will be a big problem going forward in all public schools, in my opinion. To sum it up, HB 1605 centralizes all funding and decisions on instructional materials. I see a problem with this. Local ISDs have lost their power and authority with regard to making their own decisions and purchasing particular materials that they have determined are needed at their school. Because of these issues, I'm asking the Texas House of Representatives to reconsider this law, repeal it, modify it, change it in some way to leave it more localized so that the local teachers and school board will have a say-so in instructional materials. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your testimony. Members, any questions for this panel? All right, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. Chair calls Lynn Davenport, Aaron Green, Alice Linehan, and Meg Backich. After that, we'll have Mary Lowe, Holly Plemons, Acey, Indamayo, and Patrick Huff.
Are we being given the opportunity to speak on both bills? Because you said this is for HB 1605,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to make sure, and then I'm going to be given an opportunity to speak on
We're
the information.
going through everything in order.
Okay.
What people
I just wanted to make sure.
testify. And some people have included that, and they may or may not come back, but we'll do that. So I show you register as Lynn Davenport on behalf of yourself, You'll be testifying. Have Erin Green, registered on behalf of herself, will be testifying. Have Alice Linehan on behalf of herself, will be testifying. And Meg Backich will be testifying on behalf of herself. Is all that correct?
Yeah.
All right. And you are?
Alice.
Alice. All right. We'll start with Alice Linehan.
Thank you very much. Okay. My name is Alice Linehan, and I'm here on for myself, mother of 3 children, but I am the vice president of Women on the Wall. And I've driven on my dime for over a decade coming to testify. Unsuccessfully, I will say. And it's disheartening to know that moms and dads come and testify and people leave after all the invited guests. I find that rude and disrespectful. Because of this, I have no confidence in any elected representatives on either side of the aisle under this pink dome. With legislation passed like HB 1605 and the government-regulated school choice that I'll come back and talk about later, the reason that I'm testifying, even though I know that probably most people won't listen behind that dais, is because it's getting on video and it's going on the record that I'm presenting to you research that I've done over the last decade and tried to present unsuccessfully because there's lobbyists and invited guests who are the supposed experts. But I am giving you research. There was a research manual that was printed in 1994 that lays out clearly everything that we're seeing today and who's behind it. Whether it's 1605 and the technology or whether it's the school choice bills. This has all been laid out. And as moms and dads, many of us have done the research to know that, and I'll finish in just a second, to know that what you're being told by experts, they are groomed to tell you things. And I think you as representatives of our children and their future, you need to do your own due diligence and not just listen to experts that are paid, but actually listen to moms and dads who spend our money, our tax dollars, for you to be behind that dais. So I encourage you to start doing your own research and not just listening to experts. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Erin Green.
As a former teacher and current tutor, I see many students struggling to learn to read, write, and do simple math. I have researched education for about 10 years now, and the trend that I see is disturbing. I have seen more and more computer programs being used to teach our children and less importance placed on the teacher, known as the facilitator. Education is about relationship. You cannot have a relationship with a computer. HB 1605 references technology 43 times and OER 66 times. This law is about technology. Additionally, students are on the computer a minimum of 4 hours a day. I spoke with a senator in June regarding HB 1605, and he was excited about Bible stories in the program. Where did the authors of the Bible stories receive their guidance on this lesson that they're presenting? The American church is not even teaching the true gospel, which is, I am a deplorable sinner in desperate need of a Savior, not that a God loves me and has a wonderful plan for me. According to Deuteronomy 6, the parents are in charge of the child's education, not the government. Furthermore, OER comes from UNESCO and can be changed and adapted. Where is the data, which is the devil's math, proving computers are improving the students' learning? And I think I'm going to talk about educational freedom at another time, but mine's done. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Meg Backich.
I echo everything Alice said. It's amazing. We sat here and listened to an over 2-hour infomercial for government-regulated school choice. And we, the parents who are the experts, I have 5 children who went through the system, have 2 minutes, and it closes at 6. That has to stop. That's tyranny. Okay, so as far, and the fact that you guys have a software entrepreneur as the Commissioner of Education that you actually ask educational questions to as if he has ever been in a classroom. He has not. And you know, Representative Harrison, you mentioned that since 2011, the funding has increased, I think, by over 40%, and the outcomes have decreased. Why is that? This is not rocket science. We've all been here for over a decade because beginning in 2011, the Republican legislature began passing laws that systematically shifted education away from teachers and textbooks to technology. It shifted away from academics to behavioral, to social and emotional learning, like bills like Senate Bill 123 that mandates the teaching of government character traits. This is absurd. And how do they want to do it? On a device. And House Bill 1605 is the culmination of everything that's been happening since 2011. So all that money, you know where it's going? One-to-one devices, refreshers. It's not going to teacher pay. My district, I live in Highland Park ISD. We passed in 2015 a $361 million bond. Why? To build 21st century learning schools. What is a 21st century learning school? It's a school that has pods, that's one-to-one devices to create what? Global citizenship. You make a face like you're confused. This is a fact. This is what happened beginning in 2015. And I'm just answering your question because Morath has no idea. He's here to sell software. I mean, we had Representative Schaefer get him to admit, oh yeah, paper, well, he's not here because he doesn't listen to the parents, but to say, hey, paper and pencil is the way that we should be teaching our students. Morath actually said that. And then he had the audacity to say that third graders, we're gonna have them writing cursive and doing writing, but are any of you aware of the online star? That the online star is actually, the writing is online for a third grader? We call that typing. So it's to sit there for the last, however many hours I've had to sit there quietly. I mean, my friend couldn't even rest her eyes. We aren't even allowed to do this anymore because you have so many rules, Chairman Buckley. But you guys need to start asking the parents, to be your invited guests because nobody has questions for us, which tells me you don't really want to solve the problem because at no point has anyone talked about the solutions. How do we How do we fix our traditional public schools? Don't you wonder where all that money is going? No, you want educational school choice for how many students? We have 5.1 million in our school in the state of Texas. Do you not care about them all? If we fixed our traditional public schools, how? By simply returning to what we know has been tried and proven successful. I'm exhausted of all of you, but I'll be back to talk about government-regulated school choice.
All right. Lynn Davenport.
Mike. Drop from Meg. Well, I don't know that there's anything else that I could even say because she said it all and it was fantastic. But I was here for 1605. I testified against the bill because I had done the research. And there's an historical, you have to understand the history of how this even came about before you even carried the bill, you and Senator Creighton. So we Mary Lowe and I called the Creighton's office and we talked to his staffer, and I've got her on recording saying we're working on a statewide curriculum that's going to help the accountability scores. Meg mentions that our STAR is online, that our children are now doing all of these things online, and you also referenced Representative Schaefer. What's going to happen with the districts is they're having deficits. My district of Richardson ISD, $28 million, but we spent $10 million to refresh iPads because they know what's coming. They have to have the technology in order to jump through the hoops that the commissioner is making them jump through. If they want the money carrots, which I call the grants bribes, there's 3 grants that they can get within 1605 in Richardson ISD. If they take it, it's like $2 point something million for the first grant. Vendors get can collect up to 50% of that. The second grant, $500,000, vendors can collect up to 50% of that. That's coming straight from the horse's mouth of the Regional Service Center, Region 10, where they're also supposed to be training them on this Amplify 1605. You wonder where the money's going, why it's not going to the teachers and the students. It's because it's going to the vendors. And also that whole panel of people that sat here for 2 hours, they're from Indiana and Utah and Arkansas, and y'all are grilling them. Everybody's there on the panel and y'all are asking them all these questions. No, those people were paid to be here. One of them's funded by Jeff Yass, the billionaire from Pennsylvania. Why are we listening to people outside of Texas? I drove from Dallas, Texas for 3 hours to be here, paid on my own dime. And I've researched all of the things that are coming before our students because I've had 3 children go through the public schools, and I wonder, where the hell is this coming from? Why is my son walking home from school and he's stressed out and worried that he's going to fail a test that he's not even at risk of failing? Because the pressure that comes down to those little children, I urge you to shadow a 3rd grader and see what they go through. And it's typing. It's not writing. And Marath lies when he sits up here and says it's a classical model. No, classical and biblical, those are 2 different things. They're conflating those things. But this is not a classical model of education. If we want to really see a change, we need to return to what works. How did you learn to read, Representative Buckley? How did you learn to read, Representative Allen? I mean, seriously, think about this. This isn't rocket science. What works is time-tested models of education, which we've thrown out because they're not money makers. You can't make money on time-tested reading strategies. Right. How Erin teaches her
Please
kids.
wrap up your comments.
Yep, that's it. We need to repeal that bill of yours.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Any questions? Representative Hinojosa.
Thank you all for your comments. I want to really say how much I appreciate that you come back even though you feel like you're not being heard. I know that's frustrating, but it's worthwhile. And I so appreciate the input that you're given. And I also agree that we spend so much time and so much money on most of what comes through here is considering a vendor contract, right? And
Creighton said all bills are vendor bills. Yeah.
It really feels like that. And so I would ask that we're looking at how we do a back to basics funding model bill for public education where we don't do anything until we pay our teachers right? Keep the foundation school program. The rest should be zero-based budgeting. Let's first keep the foundation funding program that is constitutionally required, that's money that goes in the classroom, and then let's figure out how do we bring our teachers to the pay they need and build from there, and then the contracts come at the end. And I would love to work with y'all on that.
Yeah, actually, in Highland Park ISD, where I was saying that we passed this in 2015, this $361 million bond, and we've had declining enrollment since TOS's vision came in from 2011 and began it being implemented in 2013. And so now they're trying to pass another bond. So, I mean, we are going to be over $500 million in debt in Highland Park ISD for only 6,100 students and declining enrollment. And so our last school board candidate, his idea was a zero-based budget because what we have found is administrative costs have gone up 40% while teacher pay has remained stagnant. And so we have all these administrators making, over six figures, and our teachers are making nothing. It's mind-blowing. But what he said was, the surest way for Highland Park to employ the highest paid teachers in the state is to move to a zero-based budget that applies the first dollars to teachers.
Well, and I would say it's even more important that we do that at the state level because so many of our administrative costs at the district level come from all the requirements we at the state put on our school district. And so
that's right.
We need to get that stuff under control here first.
The state has to repeal bad laws, like House Bill 1605. It's a bad law. I don't know the exact name of the bill, but you guys have a bill that also mandated the technology. There's a bill that mandates the government character traits. Well, the way they're testing that is online, right? So it's behavioral outcomes. Until we remove the technology, which is the sinkhole that's failing our students, we're not going to get anywhere. But then you have, a software entrepreneur as the commissioner of education who he says they are collecting our students' data for AI so that AI will be grading the star. How is this? I mean, you have 4 children, you just said. Like, how do you think that that's okay? It's not okay. It has to stop. And to ask us to sit here quietly and be patient while these people talk about this nonsense is ridiculous. At some point, let us be the invited guests. I'll be much more polite. And we have solutions. We have solutions, and it starts with teachers, books, paper, pencil.
Thank you.
I just want to speak to
Thank you, Representative Hosa.
The zero-based budgeting, I'll just make one comment, is that there's something called math innovation zones. And on your agenda, you were talking about the rural innovation zones, I think. I forget all the names, but there were 2 innovation zones. And I would argue we need to evaluate the previous math innovation zone, which I can already tell you, and the commissioner can tell you, it was a failure just before the pandemic. So if we would evaluate those, if you go to zero-based budgeting, then you're not allowed to renew that contract because it didn't work. And then you say evidence-based, data-driven, So I think that's an excellent point. We're going to make a campaign on that, not school choice, parent empowerment, and all the stupid slogans they do around school choice. We're going to do
All right,
zero-based
thank you.
budgeting.
Thank you very much.
Parental rights,
Any
so
more
we don't
questions?
Get to talk for more than
All right. Yeah.
2 minutes. You have to pay for it. 2 hours.
I'll let you go way over 2 minutes.
Nice.
All right, chair calls Mary Lowe, Holly Plemons, AC Indemayo, and Patrick Huff. Thank you. Okay, I show you registered as Mary Lowe on behalf of yourself, and you'll be testifying today. I show you registered as Holly Plemons, and you'll be testifying on behalf of yourself today. I show you registered as AC, did I say it right? I say Indemayo, thank you. You register on behalf of yourself, you'll be testifying. And I show you registered as Dr. Patrick Huff, and you'll be testifying on behalf of yourself. All right, we'll start on this way. We'll start off with Mary Lowe.
Oh boy, how are you? Okay, so
I'm great.
The first thing that I want to say is that there's been so much deception around 1605. There was deception in this room when it was brought before the committee, and then there was deception on the floor when the House passed it. And it's time that we stop using deceptive words. I'm looking here. Amplify raises $215 million in growth funding round from Learn Capital, A Street Ventures. By the way, Learn Capital, best friends with Mays Middleton. So here we have, what do they call themselves? A digital forward programs, curriculum and assessment program. Wall Street Journal, there's 15 articles like this out there about Amplify. Okay, but the House of Representatives repeatedly tell their constituents that 1605 is not Amplify. I want y'all to stop lying. I want you to go home. I want you to tell your constituents that you passed a bill to pay for Amplify, because when we review the material and compare it side by side, it's Amplify. They changed the word switchblade to butter knife, and they've changed the material. And if you ask the commissioner, he'll tell you it's 70% Amplify, which you'd already bought and paid for under emergency power, but you spent $2.44 billion to buy not technology, but this fancy dancy Texas-made curriculum, instructional material, $200 per student per Marath. However, you could get this. I don't even care about this company. I just happen to have gotten resource information from them, $50. And you know what? For the state of Texas, they'd put whatever you want to in there. You know what? They'll even make it unique for certain school districts. If they're large enough, those school districts could bundle. So if the school district wants to teach who knows what, they can do it. That's local control. 1605 100% undermines local control. Yeah, I'm going. All right, so tell me how it is the hypocrisy. You get out there and you bang a band that we've got to get school into the free market. That'll create competition. So we're going to take the ISD that's associated to my local control, and you're going to force it into the free market, and you're going to use my taxpayer dollar to do it. But you know what you just did? You took the number one thing to education out of the free market. Are you insane? You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. You just can't. Okay, so there's 90 schools in Texas that have been using Amplify since the pandemic, and I'm going to email each one of you the undoctored, the uncooked books of the data. The kids can't read. I want y'all to stop running around spending our money. You've got a fiscal responsibility. Tell your House members this is not free. It is digital. It's not free. It's $2.44 million. And after the first couple of years of grants, you're going to come back and you're going to ask for more. Stop the monkey business. Power, empowerment, educational opportunity. You know the English language, or maybe they didn't teach it at A&M. I don't know. I don't know. But let me tell you something. You guys, nobody trusts you anymore. And that's the root of the problem. You've got to establish trust with the public again. And by George, you've got to quit dancing with the men who pay you. And quit doing what the governor wants you to do, and do what the constituents want you to do, and do what is best for Texas. Texas can and should lead the nation in education and in freedom, and you're not.
All right. Thank you very much. Aisha Indemayo.
I am a mom of an 8, 10, and 12-year-old in the third largest district in Texas, Cypher ISD. I do not support HB 1605 because educational apps such as Amplify and Achieve 3000 and other resources are not transparent and contain UN propaganda already, with legally questionable surveys. The surveys are being captured by third parties. Currently, Scholastic knows the percent of children that are willing to eat bugs. I think someone is profiting off of this data. To my first point, educational apps are not transparent. They are located in the district's They are not located in the district's central location for curriculum, which is called Schoology. Teachers cannot physically put an app inside Schoology. They just instruct students to open different apps with no reference in Schoology. The Cypher ISD website says Schoology is a one central location where curriculum needs are met. This is not true. I had to visit the school weekly by appointment to view the lessons outside of Schoology. See Exhibit A in my packet. It's an email from my child's principal, and it also states, the law does not require these materials to be provided in advance. That kind of transparency is not acceptable. Second, I want to share a lesson from an educational app outside of Schoology that my daughter was taught this spring. It taught UN sustainability data to my daughter and surveyed her opinion based on the propaganda. I will explain why I think the survey is illegal. The lesson says, according to the UN, eating beef and chicken is unsustainable and getting protein from insects is more doable. And also, no scientist will tell you cattle farming is sustainable. See Exhibit B and C. Is this really true, especially in Texas? It's illegal to survey without consent, yet this app is asking my child's opinion, would you eat bugs, yes or no? The URL of the question is Scholastic, so that's where her data is being collected. See Exhibit D. I asked the SBOA if this question could be breaking laws, and I was given 2. See Exhibit E. In closing, I do not support HB 1605 because educational apps are not transparent and teach UN propaganda, survey children that are possibly illegal. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. Dr. Patrick Huff.
Chairman Buckley, members of the House Education Committee, I'm Dr. Patrick Huff. I'm an educator of 34 years, 11 of those years as a head principal. I want to approach my opposition to 1605 from 2 perspectives. The first would be from the teaching profession, which I represent. By approving 1605 to move forward, you continue to erode the essence of the teaching profession. By this, I mean the efficacy of the teacher will transfer from the individual teacher to the electronic device. The ability to produce a profound effect will now reside with the tablet and its online digital curriculum. It's part of the agenda. Every student needed to be outfitted with a tablet first, and now the desired curriculum will be loaded in. This is but the latest step that is endangering the teaching profession. Honestly, with Amplify as the platform for instruction, there is no longer the need for a professional teacher. You will be contributing to this planned agenda by passing this bill. Please think hard before you make your decision. The next perspective I wish to convey deals with UNESCO, as has been mentioned by other panelists. And it's a Sustainable Development Goal number 4, working toward a quality education. A quality education in UNESCO's eyes is through the digital platform. Amplify is the digital platform that meets all the expectations for UNESCO. It will meet the Sustainable Development Goal that UNESCO is looking to achieve. So welcome to the brave new world of global education. All this will further distance the teacher from the student. The plan to take over all of education, including private and homeschool education, is also a UNESCO agenda. I repeat, why are you following this global agenda? Texas has lost control of public education and turned it over to the globalists. There's no longer any such thing as a local control. Ladies and gentlemen, you can turn this around. You can fix our education system and restore it to the once great education model it once was. Focus on what your main objective needs to be. If you don't know where to start, call me. My friends and I can help. We would love to be the invited guest talking to you on the panel. I yield the floor.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Huff. Holly Plemons.
Hi, I'm Holly Plemons. I'm the mom of 3. I am a Tarrant County Republican Precinct Chair and hopefully will be ratified next week as an area leader. I am here to talk to you about everything that was said earlier. So one thing that was talked about repeatedly is pre-K. I've spoke about this before with you guys. I hope that somebody actually will read the information on the Peabody study out of Tennessee. It is the only controlled study in the United States on pre-K, and it does not show a positive outcome for those children in free pre-K. It's just you're backfilling because you're losing students because our public schools are an absolute nightmare. Representative Allison, you talked about the PEG transfer and why more parents don't do the PEG transfer. They don't know about it. I talk about it all the time. I've done it. I've actually done 8 different options for my kids. I've done 4 different charter schools. I've done online homeschool, traditional homeschool, co-op homeschool. I've gone to my home zone public school, my out-of-zone public school through a PEG transfer and through the school of choice, and out-of-district transfer. And now I have 1 child in private school and 1 child in charter school, and next year I will only have 1 child in school and he will be in private school. I completely rearranged my entire life so that that 1 child could go to private school. I would love to know where you can get private school for $6,000 a year. Of what you said earlier, I'm in Tarrant County, and everybody knows that our urban districts, they're hurting, and we've got low-income families, and in the urban districts is where you're going to have the higher tuition private schools. I am at the lowest tuition private school in Tarrant County, and it's $11,000 a year. An $8,000 coupon for somebody in Como, which is a very low-income district in Fort Worth. They can't go there, which is the same reason that they can't do the PEG transfer, because they need the transportation, they need the free uniforms, they need the free school supplies, and they have been set up to be on that. So these vouchers that you guys are talking about, your education savings account, and whenever you guys whine about, oh, the low-income kids, and that's who you're going to help, no, you're not. No, you're not. There's no data to prove that. You can look at the PEG transfers. You can look at the people that leave public school to go to charter schools. Our charter schools in the low-income areas, they're full, but guess what? So is public school. I am absolutely heartbroken that I keep coming here and all of you are so focused on 57,500 students, which is the amount of vouchers that you are going to do with HB1, when we have 5.5, 6.1, whatever the new number is for public school kids. Why are we spending millions of dollars? Why am I hauling my tail down here every single time you talk about vouchers on my own dime, having to get my husband to take off work, take a vacation day so I can be here? Because thank you so much for doing this week when half of the state of Texas is starting school and the other half starts tomorrow. And I'm not there getting my kids ready for school. you guys probably owe my husband a phone call because this is the first time in his life of being a father that he's having to get his kids ready for school the day before school. I'm sure he's going to do a fine job with it, but it's my job. But I wanted to come here because I think this is so important for my children. Even though I have my little that's going to be left and he's going to go to private and he's going to be fine, when he grows up, if he is living in a community of low-income people that had to be trapped in the public schools because the public schools are their only option, and then y'all aren't doing anything to fix them, you know who's going to pay for that? My kids. My kids, because they're not going to be able to get a job. And if none of y'all have gone to the store and paid with cash and looked at the confused teenager trying to figure out how to give you your change back, come to Fort Worth. I'll take you around. I'll show you what we're up against. Y'all have to fix public education. Vouchers are a new tax. Charter schools are the second lane of public education. Now you're wanting to start a third lane because you've mucked up the first two. You need to fix public education. It is the only option. And if you think that there's not options, ladies, guys, raise your hands if you have an option to fix public education. Call on any of us. We would love to talk to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Members, any questions for this panel? All right. Thank you very much for being here.
Here's your paper. Here, Mary. Cheers. Good job. Good job.
Chair calls Carla Gant, Madeline Stubing, Amy Super, and Tina Orabaugh. James Hollimer, maybe? Hollimek, Fran Rhodes, Michelle Williams, and Paul Colbert. You're on deck. All right. Did you load this? Yeah. All right. Okay. I'll show you, let me make sure I've got it. Show you red shirt is Carla Gant. Be testifying on behalf of yourself. I'll show you red shirt is Madeline Stubing. You'll be testifying on behalf of yourself. Have you red shirt is Amy Super, testifying on behalf of yourself. And have you red shirt is Tina Orabaugh. All right, testifying on behalf of yourself. And we'll begin with you.
Hi, I'm going to try and give you some information about how to rectify what we're going through. Students right now, oh, by the way, I've taught for 33 years. I've been retired since 2018. So, and I have taught in low economic and very high economic school districts, New Caney, all the way up through the Woodlands. So anyways, I have the whole spectrum. I've taught 6th grade through college, through high school, through college, and I taught math. Students right now, one of your problems is in math is they're getting passed on. This no student left behind is bull. I know for a fact a teacher, my daughter now is a teacher, gives a kid a 20 in math, a 20, doesn't know anything. He gets passed on. So how can a kid that gets a 20 in mathematics, how's he going to go forward? He's just going to be lost in the system. So that is one thing we can focus on is let's make sure they are repeated, they get extra help, they get some tutoring, whatever it takes. She says, summer school's a joke because they just go, they know they're going to pass. They even tell her, they go, it doesn't matter, I'll just go to summer school for 3 weeks and then I'll pass. They automatically pass summer school. They don't fail anybody in summer school. So they don't really learn anything. Teachers can give a student a 20. They change the STAR test. Change the STAR test. The STAR test is stupid, okay? I'm sorry. But, you have a group of kids that want to learn math, and you're not even testing math. You're testing word problems. Word problems. They can't read. So they can't do the reading, they can't do the math, because it's all word problems. So they don't even do it. They put their head down on their desk. This is a Title I school, but reading has become, that means they are low economics. They don't teach, you teach to the test. So you take 2 weeks off of 3 weeks off of school, and you go, oh, now we just do test. We're just going to practice the test. They don't learn anything. They're not learning anything. They're just practicing the test. And so they put different numbers in. And there's a format to learn. When I taught algebra, we got a group of us, all seasoned teachers, and we said, hey, this is a stupid book. So let's start the way we know it. We're going to start teaching positive and negative numbers, and then we're going to do fractions, and then we're going to do decimals, and then we're going to do one-step equation, two-step equations, three-step equations. We're going to do word problems we had a system. Now the books were like, oh, here's this, and then you go over to here, and then you go over to here, then you go. The kids are lost.
Do you have any comments on 1605, on the bill, 1605?
On 1605,
Okay.
what
If
I'm
you would
trying
just
to
wrap
say
it up,
is,
please.
this is stuff that we can do so we don't have to do 1605. You know, this is the stuff I'm trying to help you. You don't know what to do. Well, these are things you can do so we don't have to go into 1605. I have looked at 1605. Some of the things that I've seen, I don't like. But I'm not going to wasn't going to go into it. I was just going to go into some things that might help you help the students where they are right now. So that is what I was going to try to do. Students learn the most in elementary school, besides what Mike Morath had said. There's a book out that says everything you learn in kindergarten. I mean, elementary school is where you're going to learn the most. And then go to 8th grade, and then after that, trade schools. Trade schools are easy to implement. You can take very easy to implement. They need trade schools.
All right, wrap up your testimony. We're on 1605.
Okay.
I appreciate your
Okay.
ideas.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Okay, got you first. Amy Super. Oh, sorry.
I'm going to give you a little bit from the Stanford report, Stanford University. Every student forced to connect via a smart device utilized in schools is an investment of time, money, and expertise in technology over teachers and the teaching profession. Our focus on fixing or saving schools via digital tools assumes that the benefit and the convenience that those platforms offer are worth it. Platforms reduce students to quantifiable data, which suggests that we are removing the innovation and imagination of students and teachers in the process. So I think someone else has already said it before. We've all learned kids are supposed to be learning to read up through grade 3, and then after that they read to learn. I love the discussion about vocational training and vocational studies, getting kids right out of school, being able to start a job. But guess what? Even plumbers need to be able to read. Even someone taking a vocational certification is going to need to be able to read. Are we going to keep them long enough to get them to that point where they're able to get into those programs and get those jobs? I question that. I look at the TEA data that shows me that in my urban ISD, less than 50% of the students in their end of core subject matter testing, less than half of them are passing it, yet somehow we have an 86% graduation rate. Help that make sense to me. How are they not passing those classes, but 86% of them are graduating? I appreciate you, Representative King, for truly reminding me what it means to represent the constituents of your own district by speaking to the needs of your rural communities, and the fact that this travesty of a panel you had up here today of all out-of-state people who are running programs and getting paid to run programs that don't work for us, not even what any of you are asking for in any of the bills that have come up about this. Absolutely nothing like that. That was insulting, honestly, to sit here for that many hours and for them to not answer the questions, in addition to Commissioner Morath, who also couldn't answer half of your questions. Hold them accountable. Let's fix our public schools. That's what I'm asking you to do.
All right. Thank you very much. Madeline Stubing.
Hi, I'm Madeline Stubing, and I come from a conservative family of educators rooted in agriculture across Texas. I grew up in the Panhandle. I student taught in Cleburne, and the year after I received Teacher of the Year at Divine ISD in South Texas, I resigned. I fought for my job, my students, and my FCS content and the education of my kids at the local level, and I realized that the ball falls in your court, and that's why I'm here. We are done with the liberal agendas, laws, and policies from the state impeding our jobs and infiltrating our kids' classrooms, curriculum, and TEKS. We're fed up legislators squandering our hard-earned money. Meanwhile, our schools are more than struggling. I urge you to step into a classroom and talk to a teacher and see what their needs are. This teacher shortage and the lack of qualified teachers are solely due to the nasty state politics in our schools. A scripted lesson plan format is not going to fix that. And guys, the math doesn't add up. A platform does not require billions of dollars to be shuffled through several companies along with a bill to be passed. That also requires district adoption. These platforms already exist. Texas FFA and Texas CTE have done an amazing job creating this resource for us. You didn't need to waste money on this. What is the real agenda here? We're so tired of the lies and the empty promises. OER disbarges a teacher's professional abilities and diminishes a student's worth to a number in a database. And that is the main reason why I left education. Our children are worth far more than a data collection on a government-issued device and platform. There is no reason that I was collecting or analyzing data on students. I spent more time collecting and analyzing data on my students than I did on my thesis and my 2 published scientific research journals combined. I speak on behalf of all conservative educators and administrators on this issue. I oppose OER and anything correlating to STAR, UNESCO, Common Core, and any other communistic ideologies placed in our schools for a global agenda. Fix the issue, be transparent, repeal 1605, and audit the TEA so we can return to a safe environment with our students. And education methods should align to child development practices.
All right. Thank you very much. Carla Gant.
Committee members, my name is Carla Gant. I reside in Collin County. I'm a Collin County precinct chair, and I'm a mom of 4, all who have been through the public school system. 1 is still in our neighborhood school, and 1 actually now is an educator there. I'm here to express my concern with the materials labeled high-quality instructional materials, open education resources by the state. I have reviewed many of these on my own as a parent, and some of my review was done with my daughter, who is a kindergarten teacher. Why are we teaching kindergartners information that is age inappropriate? I'm referring to, in particular, Unit 8 about kings and queens. Kings and queens are not in kindergarten standards, but yet we're teaching our 5- and 6-year-olds about royal families, King Solomon, Cleopatra, Princess Yenenga, Prince Lang Lu, King Manamusa, all before they learn about George Washington. Children this age are not developmentally ready to comprehend this sort of instruction. Therefore, it sets them and our teachers up for failure and further invites behavior issues into the classroom. Why are we doing this? I recall many educators and parents speaking on these very issues regarding the social studies TEKS that were not approved by our elected SBOE. But yet here's something very, very similar in the state curriculum labeled as high quality instructional materials. I respectfully ask all of you to repeal HB 1605. Our state does not need to be crafting curriculum for our neighborhood schools. Our neighborhood school teachers need to be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Members, any questions for the witnesses? All right. Thank you very much for being here. Chair calls James Holomek, Fran Rhodes, Michelle Williams, and Paul Colbert. Kelly Kieschnick and Evelyn Brooks, you'll be on deck. do this. Fran Rhodes. Fran.
I thought you called Evelyn.
Yeah, Evelyn will be in the next panel.
Oh,
Okay, got it. Sorry. All right. Okay, so I'll show you registered as Paul Colbert, testifying on behalf of yourself. I'll show you registered as Michelle Williams, you're a teacher, and testifying on behalf of the Houston Education Association and yourself. Is that correct? And well, hold on. Where's everybody else here? Oh, come on. Okay, and I'll show you registered as James Halamek. Testifying on behalf of Texas State Teachers Association. All right, we'll begin with Paul Colbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm not here to talk so much about the legislation itself as the implementation of 1605 and the way it's being looked at being implemented by the State Board of Education. As a member of the legislature for 12 years, I probably passed more legislation dealing with religious freedom than I think any other member of the legislature had before or has since. My particular focus has been on preserving the right of free exercise of religion and preventing government from intruding on free exercise of religion. And I passed numerous bills dealing with those topics. However, the other part of that same amendment to the Constitution, which I, just like all of y'all, took an oath to uphold, prevents the establishment of religion. You have to walk that fine pathway, that fine tightrope between not prohibiting the free exercise nor using government to establish preference for a particular religious belief or belief system or even having a religious belief. And the problem that I have with 1605 is, number one, it is an absolute violation as it's being proposed by the State Board of Education with the Bible passages that are in there for kindergarten through fifth graders. The way that those passages are in there, where they are being presented as if they are historical truth rather than they are religious beliefs, and I say that as a religious person who has spent many, 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 many thousands of hours reading the Bible in Hebrew. This method of implementation will impinge upon the freedom of parents to decide what the religious instruction of their children ought to be. And I think that you need to, as the author of the legislation and that as the panel that approved legislation, you need to take a firm stand with the State Board of Education and get them to go back to things that are, number one, not an intrusion upon those parental rights to be the determinant of the religious beliefs of their children, and number two, for that matter, to make sure that what they do is age appropriate, because I think, as many other people have spoken to, an awful lot of it is not age appropriate. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. All right, we'll go with James Halamek.
Howdy, James Hallmack with the Texas State Teachers Association. I provided all of y'all with some testimony about how 1605 is working to degrade the teaching profession. What's working to degrade the public schools is these taxpayer-funded vouchers. TSTA opposes any school voucher scheme that diverts funding from our already underfunded Texas public school system. Lawmakers should work to increase appropriations to public schools, not divert taxpayer funds to private schools. After the 88th legislative session, the Texas public school system finance outlook is bleak. This summer, many Texas school districts faced a budget deficit and were forced to approve layoffs, cut programs, and close schools. Texas students are losing their extracurricular activities, librarians, teachers, and community schools, all while being placed into larger class sizes. As teachers are starting the new school year, inadequate school funding has had a negative impact on morale. On a recent survey of Texas teachers, 65% of those surveyed said that they were seriously leaving the teaching profession, and 33% surveyed said that they need to take extra jobs during the school year to make financial ends meet. Texas teachers work tirelessly for their students and deserve a state leadership that will invest in them and their districts, not a state leadership that wants to defund public schools in favor of taxpayer-funded private school vouchers. Taxpayer-funded vouchers do not increase school choice. Private schools have no legal requirement or obligation to enroll any students, including students with a voucher. Admission choices belong to the schools, not the parents. Private schools do not admit students with special education needs because they are not provide They are not prepared to provide those services, and those who do charge extremely high tuition. Private schools are reluctant to admit students with disciplinary issues, and if they do, often do not keep them. The Texas legislature's constitutional responsibility is to fund and maintain quality public schools, not use tax dollars to promote and enrich private schools without public accountability. A taxpayer-funded voucher scheme will not improve school choice or provide private schools to all. It will work to degrade the Texas public school system that our government is proud to protect and that Texas students rely on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. All right, we'll go to Michelle Williams.
Hi, yes, Michelle Williams. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you. I am a representative of the Houston Education Association. Also, I'm a teacher in the Houston Independent School District. I know a lot of you all are probably wondering what is going on in Houston, and I'm going to speak to it through House Bill 1605. Commissioner Morath sat here and said all these wonderful things about high-quality instructional materials. However, he failed to tell you all that that's not happening in the Houston Independent School District. The most vulnerable children in Houston ISD are getting a watered-down version of some concocted curriculum that is error-ridden. It's not factual. HISD lost over 10,000 teachers under this takeover, and we only had 11,300 teachers, meaning that almost 100% of our teachers are gone. We are left with first-year teachers. So when we talk about high-quality instructional materials, House Bill 1605 does not allocate any funding for training, and that's one of the things that it fails to do. It does not train teachers. This is my 25th year in education. HISD was great with training us. All that I am as an educator today is because of that training. But textbooks don't teach children. Teachers teach children. I speak nationally, I speak locally and statewide. I provide training for teachers, and it does not do that. Also, you're violating your own law. Eureka Math is a Common Core-based subject.
Thank you.
I was in Louisiana. I taught Eureka Math. I was trained by the LSU Kane Center in Eureka Math because we were a pilot state at the time. You're violating your own law. Common Core curriculum does not match Texas curriculum. It teaches differently and it has different strategies. So they have already talked about repealing it. You all need to make some revisions in 1605. I agree with the other panelists, and we need to move the focus back on to training our teachers.
All right, thank you very much for your testimony. Members, any questions for this panel? All right, Chairman King.
How long have you been teaching?
This is my 25th year.
Awesome. Then you're going to know way more about this than me. So back when I first came to the legislature, there was a big push on this, went through this committee under Jimmy Don Aycock, because at the time, school teachers and school districts did not want any more prescriptive lesson plans. Like when I grew up,
Correct.
You know, teacher had all the kids got the workbook, and the teacher had the master book, and if you were smart enough to get in the teacher's desk, you could fill out your sheet. I remember those days, and you know that's how it was. But you remember when school teachers wanted more autonomy. They didn't want the State Board of Education picking textbooks for them anymore. They wanted to be able to structure their classroom the way it is. Remember House Bill 5? It was Jimmy Don Aycock's legacy. It was the curriculum bill in 2013. We did away with the state, basically, remember the State Board was a mess. I mean, you know, not everything stays the same. There was a point in time that the State Board was real close to being abolished because they were so bad. So we did away with that. We gave school teachers the autonomy. 10 years later, what I hear is school teachers are overworked. They have to not only find a lesson, they have to develop a lesson, they have to teach the lesson, then they have to grade the lesson, and they're overworked. I hear it from school teachers all the time. This whole panel hears it. I'm not denying it, by the way. My point is that where this came from and what made 1605 possible was that. So 10 years ago, when school teachers were being prescribed what they had to do, they didn't like it. We made changes. 10 years later, and believe me, I know the political landscape had way more to do with this than who graded the damn lesson plan. I get it. But that's where the argument came from. So I don't like Common Core. I mean, we've spent billions of dollars developing TEKS in Texas. And I remember if you said, as a Republican, if you said Common Core in 2013, you were unelected. The political landscape's changed. And when the education community, not those of you who are in this room and are very much engaged, and I value every one of your opinions, I'm not talking about you. But when the rest of the state of Texas starts voting and starts saying, we don't want this anymore, the political landscape will not allow Common Core to come back, because 10 years ago, a Republican would not have had Common Core. Today, we do. This has a lot to do with politics, but it also has a lot to do with decisions that 10 years ago teachers asked for, which made this possible. Now, I think there's some good things in 1605. I don't think it all needs to be thrown out. In fact, I voted for it. I think at some point, the parents that push this voucher thing want some structure back in our education and want less lesson plans coming off Pinterest. And if you don't think that's true, there would be no argument for 1605 if most of our lesson plans weren't coming from the internet, frankly. I've seen, and we can go through example after example of bad lessons, not bad teachers. We need to support our teachers. But we need teachers to get more engaged in what's going on instead of just being mad. And you're not, and the reason I asked you the question is because you didn't yell at anybody. You brought common sense, and you and I can talk. And I'd love to meet with you sometime later and discuss, because you said revisions. You didn't say gut the whole thing and do away with it and how wrong everybody is for taking a vote. You said revisions. And if you would come by my office sometime, I'd like to hear some more of those ideas.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do believe we've seen a greening of education. That's the problem. That's what has happened. So educators like myself who were taught to create lessons, that's what you're hearing from this new crop of teachers. They don't have the same support I had. I had veteran teachers that groomed me. I had teachers that were there. They don't have the same supports. And HISD has wiped out the last crop of those experienced teachers. They have been pushed out, and we need experienced teachers. That's how teachers learn. Teachers learn from other teachers, and we could teach them. I don't see that the bill is all bad, but there are some things that could be improved.
Well, I'm all about improvement, and I'm all about keeping the best teachers in the classroom. And here's the deal. This is something that has bothered me. In 2018, leading up to House Bill 3 on the school finance session. And we all of us that were around then did a big old victory lap after House Bill 3, and then the gains have been eroded, and that's why we're still doing this. But one of the things that popped up that is true, and it's not just in Texas, it's nationwide. Teachers are leaving the profession faster than any other profession, and they're leaving by year 3 to 5. Well, as a private business owner and a job creator, I know if you come to work in my company, you're at least 3 years before I would consider you a revenue-bearing asset. Teaching's no different. When you get ready to hone, when your craft is honed and you can really impart your knowledge into kids in the best way, being mentored by teachers that stayed in the profession, we're losing all of that. 10 years ago, we had about 12% alt-cert teachers. We're over 60% now, and that's unacceptable. So however we fix it, it's not the fault of one bill that people don't like or don't like parts of. This was an answer to a problem. Now, if we can get the answer right, I believe you're the kind of person that can help us fix it. And I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Members, any more questions? Representative Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. For the teacher union representative, I appreciate you being here. You made the comment during your testimony that school choice would, I think your words were, defund public education. Can you please explain exactly how it would do that?
Yeah, as students would accept the vouchers, they would leave the public schools, and then the public schools would receive less money because they're paid, per student, and then because of the overhead costs on these schools, if you lose small percentage, 5% of students, you're going to have impacts. You're going to have teachers being fired, extracurriculars being wiped out. There will be big impacts on these districts, even if a small percentage of students leave the public school.
So is it fair for me to summarize a much shorter version of what you just said is it would defund public schools because families would leave. They would make the choice to go elsewhere.
I think you can say that.
Why might they do that?
There's many reasons why they would make the choice. A lot of the reasons might be the fact that there is a degree of propaganda that says that all private schools are better than all public schools. That if you go to a private school, it's a fast track to better results, even though that's not necessarily true, and that not all private schools provide better results.
So your premise is that if given the choice, some parents would leave, and those parents are not equipped to make a decision on their own.
Well, some parents would not even be able to leave, and frankly, the voucher,
Well, then they
a
wouldn't
lot
leave.
of it would
then
go.
They wouldn't leave, right?
Well, they wouldn't be able to leave because
But they wouldn't. If they can't leave, then their public school is not getting defunded. You said it would defund public schools. Explain that.
Because the students would leave the public schools.
And why would they leave?
There's many reasons why they would leave the public schools.
Who should choose?
Who should choose?
Yeah, should the parent choose, or should the government choose what school that particular student should go to?
Well, it'd be nice if the parents could choose, but that's not even the case.
Well, because we haven't passed school choice in Texas
Well,
yet.
because the private schools get to choose the students.
No, but hang on. I'm talking about your contention that ESAs would defund public education. And you had to answer, although it was painful for you, you had to acknowledge that if given the choice, some parents would choose to leave their current residentially zoned government school. Is that correct?
They would leave for many reasons.
But it's their choice to leave. If given a choice, they would leave, right? Because if that's not true, then no public school is getting quote-unquote defunded. Is that right? I'm not talking to you respectfully. I'm talking to the teacher union representative right now.
Right, and I'll
Thank you.
gladly
Thank you
speak
very
to
much.
you.
Well, hang on. I want to go with this line of thought because he made the contention here in public testimony, and I want to understand this because I hear it all over the state that it would defund public education. So you have acknowledged that the only reason that even might be true is if a parent, when presented with an opportunity, may choose to put their child in a different educational environment. And I would submit, love to hear if you think differently, maybe you do. Parents wouldn't make that choice if they believe that the school they're moving to would be a worse school for their child, would they?
Well, these private schools, a lot of them do not have the same reporting, so they might not be able to make the informed decision.
Okay, and so this feels like a very paternalistic argument that you know better than those parents. Who should make the choice, you, the government, or their parent of the student in question? Because I think that's fundamentally what this whole debate is about, is who gets to decide.
If I take a voucher, there's no guarantee that any private school would accept me.
Is there any guarantee right now that that parent's kid is getting a quality education when we just had the TEA commissioner in here 7 hours ago attest that 60% of Texas students aren't reading and doing math at grade level?
Well,
what about the kids that are in the 60% that are not getting that education?
If instead of focusing on this taxpayer-funded voucher, we focus on increasing basic allotment and increasing funding for our public schools, we can create environments where where parents will receive the good outcomes that they want.
Right. But for right now, your contention is that they should stay trapped in a school that's failing them. And I want to go further with this defunding notion, because are there any ESA proposals that you're aware of in the state of Texas that would take 100% of the government funding per pupil and let that exact money follow the child? Or is it a number or a percentage of the total government funding? This matters. Hang on a second. Are any of the ESA proposals proposing to take 100% of the per pupil funding in the value of an ESA and give it to a parent?
There have been many different voucher proposals with differing amounts.
Okay, all of the ones that were contemplated last session were a percentage of the total state funding, which is around 15,000 we heard this morning, right? They were all around 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,000, right? And even the most generous ESAs were around that number. Well, that, since it's less than the full funding that's currently going to the schools would keep the delta, right? Yes, they absolutely would. They absolutely would. And what that would mean is that per pupil funding under every ESA contemplated last session would actually increase if universal ESA programs were passed in the state of Texas.
It's simple math.
I agree that it's simple.
And I teach
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Chairman.
I was going to speak on this
hold
issue
on.
when you get to the
We're trying to get there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Representative-
everything he said is wrong, and I'd be glad to explain why. And I say that as having spent 8 years as the budget chairman of education and a member of this committee.
James,
Yes.
It's up to the chairman.
you know the way public education in the state of Texas works and school funding works. When a child leaves a public school, does 100% of the funding that's at that public school leave with the child?
Yeah. Yes, it does. Yes, it
When a
does.
child leaves a public school, does 100% of the public school funding that is paying for that child to be in public school leave the school?
Correct.
Yes.
That's correct. That's the way funding works in the state of education when it comes to public school funding. Might a parent who maybe doesn't get a fifth grade teacher at their school, or who loses an assistant principal who made sure that her kid was safe at that school, or whose junior in high school doesn't get a science teacher, or whose junior in high school loses a college counselor, might that parent who determines that the state of Texas is never going to get its act together to fully fund our public schools, might they consider leaving their public school?
We need to fund our Texas public schools. It is dire. We are having budget deficits all across Texas. This is the priority, and we need to make sure that it is fully funded so our students, so our teachers, so our communities can thrive.
And doesn't it seem like it is by design we are not funding our public schools so that parents will look for other options outside of our neighborhood
Of course,
public
especially when we have writers of the bills holding our basic allotment increases hostage with the voucher.
Right.
It seems by design that our public schools are being held hostage.
Okay. Let's, this is actually testimony on 1605, but
I was going to wait.
let's say we've had an intellectual discussion there. So does anybody else have any more questions for this panel? All right. Seeing none, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Chair calls Kelly Kieschnick and Evelyn Brooks. Okay, Fran Rhodes. Is Fran Rhodes here? Chair calls Fran Rhodes. She's not here, I don't believe. All right, so. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
it is approaching 6 o'clock, and I don't know how many speakers we have left.
We're going.
I was
Well-
hoping that we could extend the time
Yeah,
so they would have an
we
opportunity.
posted as of May, so yeah,
Thank
we're gonna
you.
hear from folks.
Okay, oh,
That's-
that's good. And I would,
I'm gonna ask everyone to stick to your 2 minutes.
yeah, that's what I was gonna
Okay,
ask.
and
please.
stick to the topic. Okay, you're testifying on about Bill 1605, and so let's begin with that. I show you registered as Evelyn Brooks, State Board of Education, District 14, and yourself, and I show you registered as Kelly Kieschnick, Vice President of Policy for Texas Business Leadership Council, and yourself. And we'll begin. Flip a coin.
Okay, I'll start. Chair Buckley, Vice Chair Allen, and members of the committee. As the chairman mentioned, my name is Kelly Kieschnick. I'm with Texas Business Leadership Council. We are a nonpartisan association of CEOs focused on public policies to support a more globally competitive Texas. Studies of the curriculum teachers use in classrooms have estimated that more than 80% of Texas public school children are taught below grade level. And as Commissioner Morath noted earlier, we're setting students up to fail. We see this reflected in the 2024 STAR results. Across all grades and subjects, 53% of Texas students perform below grade level. And once students fall behind, it's very difficult for them to get caught up. Historical data shows that only 5% of third graders who are academically behind catch up within 2 years. Why does this matter to business leaders? Texas businesses are experiencing the downstream impacts of challenging student outcomes. The Texas Talent Trajectory data reflect that only 1 in 4 students complete a certificate, associate, or bachelor's degree by the age of 24. One of our most important resources here that draw businesses to locate or expand in Texas is our workforce, yet we currently do not have enough workers with the right skills to fill open positions. In order to improve post-secondary outcomes and better meet workforce needs, Texas public education system must better equip students for future success. The 80th legislature made a strategic investment with HB 1605 to do just that. Robust implementation will ensure Texas school districts have access to rigorous and on-grade level instructional materials, reduce the burden on teachers, and provide parents with increased visibility into what their students are learning. We commend the State Board of Education and the Texas Education Agency for their significant work to develop the IMRA process and rubrics that provide a systematic approach to ensure instructional materials are aligned with Texas standards and pedagogically sound to better serve Texas students. Can I give one more point? We would like to see the board and the agency stay the course with the current timeline to provide districts with access to high-quality instructional materials in core subjects for the 25-26 school year, and to evolve this process to include more grades and subjects going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Ms.
Thank
Brooks.
you. Good evening, Chair Buckley, and good evening, Madam Vice Chair Allen, and good evening, representatives. I appreciate you being here, and parents, I appreciate you being here as well. It's good to see you show up. I am Evelyn Brooks, and I do represent you on the State Board of Education for District 14. I am here to simply give my personal experience of working with HB 1605. So first I wanted to start with a story. Over 3 months ago, I asked the agency for printed copies of the state-developed OER materials. Today, I'm still waiting for those. My question is, how difficult will it be when parents ask for a printed copy of these textbooks? How long will it take to get into the students' hands? OERs are defined in 1605 as repurposed, but our TEKs are not repurposed. How will we adjust our standards to correlate with 1605? I'm really concerned about that. I honestly am sitting before you today because I'm concerned about the scores. At the end of the day, our students need to read well, write well, do math well, science and social studies well, so that they can compete and live in the pursuit of their happiness. You're limited if you don't have the basic skills, but we can do better than that. We can do better than meet or approach. We have to look at who we're serving. And those are our children. That's the future of Texas. And they're not an experiment, but I see some experimentation going on in this bill. And I'm concerned about it. I'm not here to cause division or contention, but I am here to raise some concerns so that we can pay close attention to them. So cross-curricular learning is concerning to me. It's outcome, it's actually individual establishing of patterns of information between different academic subjects. My question is this: are those different subjects, let's say I'm in ELAR, being correlated to that grade level, TEKS. And I don't see that. We had an example today where kindergarten, we're talking about kings and queens before the president was mentioned, George Washington. That is not an alignment of TEKS in the cross-curricular part of 1605. That is something we need to address. Something else I noticed too is that this threatens to drive our TEKS rather than our TEKS. So what I see happening is the instructional materials, the high quality instructional materials are now driving the curriculum, and the curriculum is driving the TEKS rather than the other way around. So our standards should drive the curriculum, in this case the OER, and it should also drive the instructional materials. So the instructional materials are the supplements or the way you enrich and you reach all of your students, but the guide map is your curriculum. I don't want to see the statutory authority that we as the SBOE board has in approving quality, high academic standards taken away from us, because I see it being overshadowed with 1605, and I'm concerned about that. We talk about math. How are we going to change the outcome of students if we don't look at those TEKS? If we don't look at what happened between 2013 and before 2013 when we taught math? These are conversations that we need to have, and we need to revise those TEKS. So that's concern to me. Another one is a question that I have that I'm still waiting for an answer on is how many IMs and HQIMs are digital versus a textbook form. My hope is that we do see a balance of textbooks being offered with this law. Secondly, I guess last, I would like to see the data. I keep getting pushback or I get roundabout answers when I ask, where's the data to support this? Where's the data to support that this high quality instructional material is actually high quality, and it's actually going to provide us the evidence to show that student outcomes will reveal that they're successful in meeting what these publishing companies are saying they can do through their HQIMs. I don't see any evidence-based tests. I don't see any data to support that. There's going to be accountability to show that students have effectively met the outcomes and the promises that the HQIMs and IMs and the OER is stating that it will do. So we're rushing. I feel a little bit rushed in this because, again, we've had pilot programs, 90 different schools, and I want to see the data because that's good data to show how effective is the OER so far, how many students we're giving that, and where are students performing. I think this type of information, these are the conversations we have to have. We don't blindly just trust or do something. I think there has to be a method to it. I think teachers, the State Board of Education members, our representatives, TEA, we all have to have this ongoing conversation. How effective are the high quality instructional materials? And so that's of importance to me. So outcomes in the form of student success in these high quality instructional materials as well as the OER. As far as, and I think that's kind of where I'll stop. I'll yield my time. If anyone has questions, I'd love to answer.
All right. First of all, the intent of the legislation is for to be deemed high quality instructional materials. They must cover the TEKS. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's where we felt like there was a disconnect in that too much of the material that was in the classroom, teachers had to go outside of class time and weekends and stuff to find filler materials to match those. So certainly I agree with you on that. That if that's not is what is happening, then it needs to be happening for sure. The second thing is to make certain that we do have the data and the results. And as we move forward with this, there's some district testing that shows some of it was in the material produced by Commissioner Morath this morning that talked about some individual data from districts that have been involved with HQIM for a while. And we're following, we're going to see where those kids go, but it is promising at this point. But you make a fair point. I appreciate you being here. I'll ask my colleagues if they have any questions for any of these two panelists.
Could I also respond to that,
Sure.
Chair Buckley? Okay, so I want to explain to you, we do have TEKS. The 100% of the TEKS are actually supposed to be in those foundational courses for the HQIMs. However, if you have standards that need to be revised, such as our math, especially K through 5th. That is the foundation. And what we have noticed is that when students are jumping from 5th grade to 6th grade, there's a gap. So we've identified we have an isolated problem K through 5. So what are we going to do in order to ensure that students have a math foundation and can make sense of the numbers, right? So I'm approving high quality instructional materials at some point. But guess what? We need to revise the TEKS for the math because you're going to get the same outcome if we use the same TEKS. So my thing is, I think I feel rushed, to just be honest with you, because again, is it the horse before the cart or is it the cart before the horse in this situation? Because the outcome will be the same as long as our TEKS are the same. I just don't want 1605 to overshadow the importance of writing high academically driven standards where our students will achieve on the STAAR assessment, as well as some mentioned here in real life experiences where they're just counting back change. We need our students to get through calculus so that they can compete before ending high school. I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We've identified the problem. So I think we just really need to carefully look and see what can we do at this point to ensure that we are giving our students a good foundation in K through 5 with those TEKS that, yes, we are using 100%. That's in the rubric anyway.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I agree. If there's a problem with the standards, especially between 5th and 6th grade, and I think it bears out there's some problem we look across the state, that certainly needs to be revised. So I appreciate your comments. Members, any questions? Any more questions for this panel? All right. We thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to I'll move on to, we're going to call up, I can't read your writing. Alejo Salazar, that'll be testifying on House Bill 2209. And we'll also call up Michelle Williams, who will testify on Senate Bill 2124. So the RPEP bill and the advanced math pathways.
Kinder, gentler testimony.
All right. Oh, there we are. Okay, we're going to go in order. I have you registered as Alejo Salazar, Superintendent La Sarra ISD, and yourself. And then, okay, and then I have you, all right, I'm going to have him testify first. We're going to go in order of the agenda, and then I'll kind of read you all that stuff, and then you'll go next. Is that okay? All right, sir, go ahead.
Yes, Chairman Buckley, Vice Chairman Allen, and representatives, thank you for allowing me this time. I just want to speak on behalf of the RPEP presentation that came before you all, the panel that came before you all this morning, and speak in favor of that. La Sarra ISD is in the Rio Grande Valley. We're at the gateway of the Rio Grande Valley. As you drive in from Corpus to Harlingen, we're about 10 miles to the west of Raymondville. And so my school district is 370 kids. We're partnering up with 5 other rural school districts of 1,000 students or less to be able to provide CTE opportunities for our kids, as well as we're already graduating about 20 to 25% of our kids with their associates on a yearly basis. But to that, we don't want our kids to be victims of their zip code. And so through the RPEP, and the additional funding, we'll be able to expand our services, and I'll be able to offer, for example, 2 CTE offerings. The school next door will be able to offer another 2, and so on and so forth. So our CTE offerings will go from 1 or 2 offerings at a school of 100 high school kids to being able to offer 15 or 12 or 15 opportunities across 6 high schools. And all we want is, but it's very difficult for me to implement that with a shrinking budget and be able to implement that without planning monies. And so that's all I'm asking, is that you all give this a very favorable consideration and fund those planning grants as was requested earlier today.
All right, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank
Members,
you.
any questions for this witness? All right, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. We're going to move over to the next bill that's being monitored. Got it? All right. So you registered as Michelle Williams. You're a teacher and representing the Houston Education Association and yourself. and you'll be testifying on Senate Bill 2124. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, you may begin.
All right, so I really do like that you all are focusing on the advanced math portion because it gives access to your most challenging areas, especially with Houston ISD being an urban school district. Some of our areas like the east side, northeast Houston, don't have access to advanced mathematics, and it forces the district to focus and put it in that area. However, there are some concerns about it because children should not be just placed in an advanced math track because of a test score. There should be a teacher recommendation along with that to give some context as the children move. I've taught elementary math, middle school math, I've taught Algebra 1, and I've been a math interventionist at a high school. And the teacher, there needs to be some anecdotal notes going along with that fifth grade student because sixth grade math is a lot different than fifth grade math. Algebra 1 in 8th grade, I taught Algebra 1 in 8th grade. There needs to be a teacher recommendation. Also, there needs to be a track for elementary. I heard one of the representatives say that because to put a child on an advanced track in middle school, you're dropping them off a cliff because the acceleration starts in 6th grade when it should start in elementary because they have to complete 7th grade math in 6th grade and 8th grade math in 7th grade to be on track for Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So the acceleration shouldn't begin in middle school. It really should start in elementary school. And those were the 2 points that I wanted to just testify to.
Well, we appreciate your expertise and 25 years of experience very much. Thank you for being here. Members, any questions for this witness? Yeah, Representative Hinojosa.
I appreciate your testimony. I don't understand. My son, when he was in 5th grade, I don't think had an option for a higher kind of math. Like he was just in 5th grade. So what would that look like?
In elementary, there can be, like for our gifted and talented children, there needs to be a pull-out program or a push-in program for those children. One of the things that Texas school districts don't do well is they do well with the bell curve, somewhat, but the kids below the bell curve and above it, they don't service them like they should. So there needs to be a program where they push the kids and make the content more rigorous through project-based learning, doing other things so it prepares them for the acceleration in middle school. What will end up happening, especially in urban school districts, those kids will start falling off. And one of the questions that I had was, are we tracking the children once they get to high school? Because in 9th grade, they enter geometry. Then Algebra 2, they're supposed to go to pre-cal and then to AP calculus. Are they continuing? And that needs to be monitored. Based on the testimony that was given today, it's only monitored through middle school.
And schools lose funding if they don't do well on the advanced math. Just saying, because if they don't pass the what's it called, the TSI?
Yes.
They need to pass both TSIs in order to get the weighted funding, the extra $5,000 to $7,000, $3,000 to $5,000 to $7,000. So if our kids are not passing the TSI math and the TSI ELAR reading, it doesn't matter how many certifications they pick up. They need to have the certification and the TSI. So if we don't advance them in math early on and they're not passing that math test, that math TSI aside from the algebra test, if they're not passing that math TSI, the school does not have any chances of that outcome-based bonus. Just saying.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Members, any more questions? All right. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we're going to go. We posted till 6, but we posted in a way where we can go beyond 6 o'clock. So we will continue to take public testimony. We're going to talk about the educational opportunity charge right now. And so the chair calls Lupita Villalobos Kelsey Kling, Sabrina Gonzalez Saucedo, and Stephen Alleman. We're going to stick real tight to our 2-minute clock on this, and so get to your ideas and your opinions, and we'll move through this. Nice. Run, Stephen, run.
Sabrina.
Lupita Villalobos from Duncanville. All right, I'll show you redshirts Kelsey Kling on behalf of Texas AFT and yourself, and you'll be testifying. I show you redshirt as Sabrina Gonzalez Saucedo on behalf of the ARC of Texas, and you'll be testifying. And I show you redshirt as Stephen Alleman on behalf of Disability Rights Texas, and you'll be testifying.
Yes, sir.
We'll begin. Sabrina, you can begin.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chair Buckley and members of the committee. Thank you for extending the time that we have available to give public testimony today. As I mentioned, my name is Sabrina Gonzalez Saucedo, and I'm the Interim Director of Public Policy and Advocacy at the ARC of Texas. We are a statewide advocacy organization dedicated to promoting and protecting the rights of Texans with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The ARC of Texas, along with several other major disability rights organizations in this state, have opposed the establishment of an educational savings account program because it would negatively impact students with disabilities. Our concerns are extensive, but the primary concerns are the loss of legal protections, lack of academic and outcome accountability in private schools, and the potential for increased segregation. Private schools are not required to enroll students with disabilities or provide the services and protections mandated under federal laws like IDEA, Section 504, or the ADA. This would result in students losing access to a free and appropriate public education, inclusive environments, and access to essential supports and therapies. As Commissioner Morath presented, special education is already egregiously underfunded, with school districts spending well over $2.1 billion annually, beyond their allocated funds to meet the needs of students with disabilities. The funding formula hasn't been reformed in over 25 years, placing an unfair burden on districts and limiting student success. We urge this committee to oppose the establishment of an ESA program and instead prioritize reforming the special education funding formula as recommended by the Special Education Funding Commission to ensure all students receive the opportunities they're entitled to under the law in their public schools. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Kelsey Kling.
Hello, good evening. Kelsey Kling, Texas AFT. I'll say Texas AFT is opposed to using taxpayer dollars for vouchers, education savings accounts, tax credit scholarships, or any other structured allotment that would divert funding from our Texas public schools. Texas AFT appreciates the chance to comment and provide input. According to data from Texas Private School Accreditation Commission, an overwhelming 72% of Texas private schools are in just 10 of our 254 counties. In 59% of Texas counties where private schools do not exist at all, those districts serve 1.4 million students. In these largely rural areas, this is effectively a voucher to nowhere. Looking at this from a purely geographical perspective, it is impossible to argue that a voucher could create educational opportunity for all students. Assuming you are a student that lives in a reasonable vicinity of a private school, that school may choose not to take a voucher, or they may choose to limit enrollment for any number of conditions like religious affiliation, academic achievement. They could also discriminate in their enrollment based on relative language acquisition, the need for special education services, or personal identity. Similarly, a private school can then choose to unenroll a student at its discretion. There's an assumption fueled by stereotypical images of these pastoral preparatory schools that private is synonymous with quality. The data, however, do not support this Hollywood notion of private schools. Recent evaluations of vouchers in DC, Indiana, Louisiana, Ohio demonstrate massive drops in student achievement between negative 0.15 and negative 0.5 standard deviations of learning loss, similar to the impact of COVID-19 and larger than Hurricane Katrina's impacts on New Orleans. In Wisconsin alone, 41% of voucher schools have closed since the program began in 1990. Many pop-up schools opened simply to cash in on this voucher payout, and these subpar schools stayed open an average of only 4 years before shuttering, leaving students and teachers adrift, students and families adrift. Most of these students will return to a local public school, and this time in need of academic acceleration to address their learning losses while in private school. I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Stephen?
Good evening. I'm Stephen Aleman with Disability Rights Texas. I'm going to echo some of the comments of the ARC of Texas, but I want to really address the sort of notion that, well, what's the harm of having a education savings account program? Parents can always stay. They have the choice to come or go. It's really about whether the program participation is equitable or not, particularly for students with disabilities. And I want to touch upon three things that if you are going to have a program, make it fair. Make it fair for students with disabilities to participate. You already heard about the cost issue of going to private schools if you want to choose that route. So if you're going to make it fair, make sure that it covers the true cost. There was reference earlier to some dialogue about special education programs in private schools. I think it's our experience that it varies. And what is considered special education in one school, private school, might just simply be dyslexia services as opposed to the true robust public school programs for students with disabilities. I want to secondly address some existing provisions in federal and indeed state law that talk about students with disabilities in private schools, that if you're going to have this program, the program mechanism has to reflect these things. For instance, public schools have to do what's called child find, even in private schools. In an ESA program, if you're going to have it and make it fair for students with disabilities, participating private schools that are taking ESA funds should be required to cooperate with child find activities. Secondly, I don't think anyone knows this, but public schools have to actually do a census of students with disabilities in private schools, and that is dependent upon cooperation with private schools. If there is going to be public dollars involved now with private schools, then private schools should be required to cooperate with that census. And finally, we do have some state regulations about parent rights of children with disabilities in private schools. If you're going to have this program, it has to reflect that existing mechanism of making complaints to TEA on behalf of private school children with disabilities. I'll conclude there and just say that much needs to be done to make it fair if you're going to have the opportunity at all for students with disabilities.
All right, thank you very much, Stephen. Any questions for these witnesses, panel? All right, thank you very much for being here. Excuse me. Chair. Yikes. Chair calls Ken Kuhl, Monty Exter, Charles Luke, and Pam Watts. All right, I show you registered as Ken Kuhl on behalf, testifying on behalf of yourself. Correct. Show you registered as Monty Exter on behalf of the Association of Texas Professional Educators. Testifying on behalf of ATPE. I show you registered as Dr. Charles Luke on behalf of the Coalition for Public Schools and yourself. And show you registered as Pam Watts, trustee, Midway ISD, McLennan County, testifying on behalf of Midway ISD in McLennan County and yourself. Is that correct? Okay, we'll begin with you, Mr. Kuhl.
Thank you. Ken Kuhl, parent of a sixth grader in Fort Worth ISD and a proud PTA dad. And I'll just toss in here that my daughter had a lot of options and still has a lot of options in Fort Worth ISD and has made some choices and does not go to her neighborhood school because of being able to make a choice within the ISD. Thank you, committee, for your service. I really wish this agenda item had been titled Educational Opportunities for All. But this conversation is not about improving outcomes for all kids. This voucher ESA conversation is only about some of our Texas kids, and that's wrong. There's plenty of data out there on vouchers and funding that most public dollars from these programs are used by kids already in private schools, schools that don't have to serve all students. The huge budget crisis that vouchers have caused in Arizona, and the study that was just released last week from Rice University's Kinder Institute on Urban Research Study that tells us just in no uncertain terms that Texas public schools are tremendously underfunded. I respectfully disagree with what Commissioner Morath said this morning about funding not having much of an impact on student outcomes. When our schools are cutting services and we can't attract or retain teachers adequately, our Texas students are clearly, their students are not getting the funding they need for their schools. Let's focus on doing a better job of assessing our student outcomes and include a parent engagement component in that assessment. This would enable and empower parents to advocate for solutions to any gaps they see in their public schools. Those should be our most powerful advocates. In what world do we design a system of accountability for a public institution and then don't support that institution so it can achieve those goals? Instead of thinking about solutions that will only help some kids, we need to be thinking about solutions that will help all kids. And that's not any form of voucher or ESA. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to Pam Watts.
Thank you so much for your time. And I thought school board meetings were long. I'm also, in addition to being on the school board, I'm the proud parent of 4 public school graduates. How many of you have or hope to have young adult children who adult well? That was the hope of my husband and I for our oldest daughter. After graduating from a 4-year Texas university, it took her some time to find what we'd call a big girl job, but find it she did as a kindergarten teacher. She loves it, she's good at it, and we as her parents were delighted to see her find not just a job, but a career. There's only one problem. Our daughter can't make her rent. She lives in a modest 1-bedroom apartment in a North Dallas neighborhood that she insists is safe, though this mama might consider a little sketchy. She has little consumer debt and no student loans to pay, and still she can't keep up with her bills. The fact that she's made it this long is due in part to an occasional grant from the bank of mom and dad. Our daughter doesn't seek a lavish lifestyle, she just wants to make it on her own. And while I admire her independence, I'm heartbroken at the decision she's been forced to make, to leave the job she loves and the students she adores for a salary she can live on. My daughter is not alone. Texas teachers continue to leave teaching in record numbers. While public schools contend with severe funding challenges, these are nothing compared to the teacher shortage crisis. If we can't pay our teachers, we can't keep our teachers. At Midway ISD, a fast growth district, thanks in part to what we call in Waco the Magnolia effect, our greatest need is not more classroom space, but more teachers. Even for us, and we're considered a highly desirable place to work, it's getting harder and harder to find teachers, let alone hire them. And our district is not alone. As you may know, in 2022, TEA, under the direction of Governor Abbott, created a statewide teacher vacancy task force to research and make recommendations. Can I finish?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. What you may not know, and I only learned courtesy of my daughter, is there is now a widespread effort to help even more teachers leave teaching. Today's educators are just a click away from newsletters, career counselors, and social media sites all aimed at teacher transition. TikTok Reels help divert would-be educators into professions where they can better provide for themselves and their families. One in particular, By Teaching, and that's B-Y-E as in goodbye, asks this question of its over 70,000 followers. Educator, done being burned out and underpaid? Let's talk. What you really need to know is this. Every time you start talking vouchers, it undermines confidence in Texas public schools. The voucher debate destabilizes our financial projections, demoralizes our current teachers, and drives prospective teachers away. After all, why would anyone enter a profession in which their livelihood was continually at the mercy of leaders who no longer have faith in them or the institution they serve? And I would love to answer the question of how vouchers defund public schools. Just ask me.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Luke.
Chairman Buckley, members, thank you for your time today and for the opportunity to testify. My name's Charles Luke, and I'm here to represent the Coalition for Public Schools, a group of over 40 public school advocacy organizations and to share concerns about education savings accounts as expressed on the agenda for today. My concerns will address briefly how they are implemented in a few other states with regard to participation cost and student outcomes. These programs have in many states led to substantial budget stress. Initial cost estimates in Florida were that the program would cost between $200 and $700 million. But by the 23-24 school year, those costs had exploded to between 2.8 and $4.2 billion. Enrollment in Indiana's private school voucher program surged to 70,095 students in 23-24, a 31% increase from the previous year, costing $439 million, 40% more than in the previous year. While vouchers are often touted as a civil rights issue, participation in that state is around 60% white students. Arizona's voucher experiment has caused a budget meltdown. The state faced a $1.4 billion budget shortfall, much of which was a result of the new voucher spending. Data shows that voucher use in this state is higher among wealthier students, and 75% of those ESA vouchers go to students who are already in private school and never previously attended a public school. With regard to student outcomes, Josh Cowan with the Michigan State University says the last decade of research on traditional vouchers strongly suggests they actually lower academic achievement. He cites voucher programs in Louisiana and Indiana as having negative academic impacts greater and near that of COVID-19, respectively. Researchers for the American Educational Research Association found that students transferring back into public schools from the Milwaukee voucher program realized substantial achievement gains after moving back to the public sector. As Cowan says, if the goal is to simply improve public school outcomes, studies showing the impact of directly funding public schools are far more prevalent. This is only a sampling of the research that's available on this issue. I've provided citations as part of my testimony, and I encourage you or your staff to carefully review research impartially before you consider moving forward on this topic. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I've provided you with contact information. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much for your testimony. All right, we've had one stick to the time limit, two didn't. That's okay. I appreciate your testimony. Monty, it's on you now.
I'm going to get us back on
Monty
track
Yeah.
because I'm going to be real quick.
Okay.
First, I would just like to say ditto to all of my colleagues up here on the panel. We agree with everything that they have had to say. You have some written testimony from us that has all the statistics that you could possibly want. You have about 30 copies of written testimony from different organizations that have about all the statistics you could ever want. So I actually just wanted to read a little bit of the charge. Consider issues and matters to increase educational opportunities in Texas to ensure that students and families have increased options to attend a high-quality school regardless of circumstance. There is one and only one system in Texas which would actually allow you to achieve that charge, and it is the public school system. There is no other system in Texas, and there is no other logistical pathway out there for you to actually achieve that charge through any other system but the public schools in Texas. Now, why I say that is because we do still have lots that we need to do in the public school system. We have lots of things that we need to improve upon. Some of those require money, some of those do not. But that is the system where you can actually meet this charge head on. And so we would ask you to spend not a fraction, but double or triple the amount of time that you are spending on this topic today, actually dealing with the system that can meet that charge for the students of Texas, our public school system. We need help with funding. We need help with attracting educators, and we need help with a myriad of other things. And you guys are the body that has to be in charge of doing that. So we implore you, please help us. Please help us to help the students of Texas. And that's really all I have to ask from you guys today.
All right, thank you very much. I invite you to come back tomorrow. We'll have an entire menu of things related to that, from and certified teachers, early childhood literacy and numeracy. So be there, be here, or be whatever it is. Be there or be square, whatever they say. All right. Thank you very much. Members, any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Of course not.
Chair calls Evelyn Brooks, Stephanie Odell, Robert Norris, and Ray Panizek. Panizek. I always get this one wrong. I'll get it. He has to tell me every time. Say it one more time, Ray. Pionzik. That's an East Bell County name. All right. Evelyn Brooks, Ray Pionzik, Stephanie Odell, and Robert Norris. All right, I show you registered as Ray Pionzik, Executive Director of the Agricultural Teachers Association of Texas, and yourself, and you'll be testifying today. I show you registered as Stephanie Odell. You'll be testifying on behalf of yourself. And I show you registered as Robert Norris. You'll be testifying on behalf of yourself. And well, for whatever reason, I know you. I'll show you, registered as Evelyn Brooks. It's not showing up on mine. There it is. I'll show you registered as Evelyn Brooks on behalf of the State Board of Education, District 14, and yourself, and you'll be testifying today. Let's begin with.
Can you change mine? I think I hit neutral, and I want to say I'm against.
Oh, everything today is neutral.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
we won't keep a copy of it, Ray.
Okay, that's all right. Just want to
right.
make sure. Good evening. I left that blank when I started writing this morning because I knew it wouldn't be morning. I do represent the Ag Teachers Association of Texas and Career and Technology teachers across the state, and I'll keep my points to those things. I was going to give compliments to Representative Schaefer for his comments early on career and technical education. I counted up, there's over 1.9 million students taking CTE classes, and about 15% of those are in ag. Where else would they go if they were not going to go to a public school if they were wanting to get that type of education? So let's fund them properly so we can fill these job needs. A report this past week showed that we will need 55,000 plus plumbers, 330,000 welders, 80,000 plus electricians. We need to make sure these programs are funded and not being given away funds that are only helping those college prep students. My second point, CTE students are given more than just skills and training that they are given. Those skills are needed to interact with employers and coworkers and speaking to teamwork and work ethic. CTE students also graduate at a higher rate than other students. And you did also hear Commissioner Morath mention FFA as part of some extra training that they give with the extracurricular activities. My third point, support public education there since there are limited CTE programs at private schools. If you research private high schools who have CTE programs, you will struggle to find any. Currently, there are only about 10 to 11 private schools offering agricultural education, and they will not have room for any if these ESAs are available. Number 4, CTE programs, like all schools, are struggling to have budgets to train and educate our much needed jobs. Although we need weighted funding, inflation and funding from the legislature have caused less to be available to meet CCMR accountability. Finally, fund the majority of students in Texas, not the small minority in public, as a diversity of programs for all students. Private schools should limit what they offer and limit who they allow in. If the public supposedly wants this, then put it on a referendum and let the public decide, not a few individuals influenced by funds for their campaigns.
All right, thank you very much. Stephanie Odell.
My name is Stephanie Odell, and I have served on the McKinney School Board for 10 years and counting. My children attended McKinney schools, and they are thriving in the workforce. I have provided a list of accomplishments from our district for written testimony for you to see. Public schools, and especially McKinney, are participating in training our kids for the workforce. McKinney has an aviation program where our kids have built 2 planes, and they have also flown them. We partner with Raytheon and Emerson and other companies in McKinney, and these businesses provide sponsors who actually volunteer their time to come to our schools and make sure the students are learning what they need for the workforce. If ESAs are offered, middle and upper income families will send their kids to the private schools, and thus our attendance will lower and our funding will lower, and we will have to cut programs like aviation and others. Lower income families will remain at the schools that provide transportation, meals, special services, and athletic programs at no extra charge. ESAs will create separate but unequal schools. If Texas wants to remain the 8th largest economy in the world, shouldn't we be supporting all our students? After all, we have 90% of our students attending public schools. And if we want to help all our students, we need to prepare them for the workforce. McKinney offers something for every student. We have lots of competition in Collin County. We have McKinney, Lovejoy, Frisco, Plano, Allen. So we have competition in our schools, and we're all good schools. Come visit us anytime. I'll be happy to give you a tour. My contact information is on the written testimony.
Oh, so he left. I got it.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Robert Norris.
Good evening. I'm Robert Norris. I'm the founder of Grandparents for Public Schools, which we like to abbreviate as GPS. GPS is a network of grandparents and others across Texas who stand in support of public schools and are very opposed to voucher schemes. We're opposed to them because they will take money away from our grandchildren's schools, most of which are struggling financially, and give those dollars to unaccountable private schools. We have a major stake in public schools because they have and will educate our children's children, and we want them to learn from well-paid educators in well-funded public schools. Solid education research shows that voucher schemes represent an entitlement program for affluent families. They're a big subsidy for private schools, and are usually a financial hit to the public schools that are the cornerstone of our democracy. Public schools are really the ultimate public good, and a voucher program would damage them in pursuit of benefiting private schools supported by wealthy donors. So you don't have to take my word for it. Members of GPS have written over 1,000 postcards to all of you expressing their opposition to vouchers. You'll be receiving these postcards in your Capitol offices this week. Many of the folks who wrote these are grandmothers, and I'm going to read you a few of them. Dear members, my grandkids deserve quality public neighborhood schools. Please reject vouchers and fund our public schools. That's from a grandmother in Dallas County. This is from one in Hood County. It's around Granbury. We know from other states' experience that a statewide voucher program would lead to school district deficits and school budget cuts. And I think this is my favorite one. I'm completely opposed to school vouchers or any kind of education savings accounts. I represent a large family of public school teachers, students, and a public school principal. Texas tax dollars should stay with Texas public schools. Grandparents are in a great position to know what a quality public education looks like because they've seen how students can learn so much and thrive in them. They can also see the financial strain local schools are going through, and they're telling you through these postcards
Begin to wrap up your testimony, please.
that it's time to provide adequate funding and resources for public schools and do not use billions of state dollars to subsidize private schools. Thanks for listening to my testimony.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, Evelyn Brooks.
Thank you. Good evening again, Representatives. Evelyn
2 minutes
Brooks,
today.
State Board of Education Representative, District 14, speaking on for myself. I had the opportunity, as everyone else here, to speak or to hear from the specialists, the panel who came in. My take on school choice is this. Texas Education Code 4.001 says all Texas students should have access to a quality education. All means all. 5.4 million children, that's a lot of children in our state. I heard the number of students attending Indiana, Utah, but nothing came close to 5.4 million school children, and they deserve our best. After listening today, we have problems, serious problems, or our parents would not want to leave the public school system. I'm a product of the public school system, but I'm the product of a public school system that worked, that was honestly in the business of real education. There was a diffusion of knowledge where I had a foundation in math, reading, writing, science, social studies, and I'm here before you today. So what am I saying? Is it impossible or is it hopeless for us to find solutions to fix our public school system? because the voucher system or school choice or education freedom choice is saying that's all we can do, that's our best. Not all 5.4 million school children can attend a private school. A lot of times, our students who are in underprivileged communities, they do not have access to transportation to get them to a private school in another neighborhood most often. So we have to look at these issues and we have to ask ourselves, do we have a discipline issue that we're not addressing? Do we have a boundaries issue we're not addressing? Do we have a high standards that we are not emphasizing in our schools that we're really not focusing on? Are there any bills, any laws that we need to repeal? We need to consider that. And I think we can fix our Texas public education system. But a public-private partnership does take away our representation. And this is our hard-earned money. And the question is, who should pay for our private school choices? The government or we the people? I yield my time.
All right. Thank you very much. Members, any questions for this panel? Okay, thank you very much. All right, chair calls Norton Rainey, Jackie Guglielmo, Terry Kosabud, and Lisa Hermes. Oh, I hope I said that right. Oh, I don't know how to say that. Can't afford it, can't say it. I show you registered as Terry Kosabud, testifying on behalf of yourself.
Yes.
And I show you registered as Lisa Hermes.
Yes, Hermes, yes.
Hermes, God, all right. President and CEO, McKinney Chamber of Commerce, and yourself. I show you registered as Norton Rainey, CEO of ACE Scholarships, testifying here today. And I show you registered as Jacqueline Guglielmo. Did I say that? Guglielmo?
Close enough.
All right. Vice President of ESA Programs for ACE Scholarships. Let's begin. We'll start over here with you, Jacqueline.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Jackie Guglielmo. I'm the Vice President of ESA Programs for ACE Scholarships. I'm thrilled to be here promoting school choice options for Texas families. Previous to my role at ACE Scholarships, I served as a public school teacher, a private school teacher, and a board-certified behavior analyst working in public schools, the most vulnerable student populations. I've personally witnessed students thrive in a public school and supported students who struggled in a classroom that did not meet their unique needs. School choice is a movement focused on students and placing them in the educational environment that allows them to reach their fullest potential. Parents know their students best. As a parent myself, I recognize that each of my students learn differently, and I'm blessed to have the options in my home state of Indiana to give them the opportunities they need. ACE Scholarships was selected as the program manager of the Utah Fits All Scholarship Program and is bringing those same opportunities to Utah families. ACE has experienced tremendous success in launching the Utah Fits All Scholarship Program, a universal program that prioritizes awarding lower-income families. During our application window, over 27,000 students applied for the program, with nearly 40% of applications being submitted on the first day. There was such tremendous interest in the program that the appropriation was doubled from $42.5 million supporting 5,000 students to $82.5 million supporting 10,000 students before the application window closed. ACE awarded families in May, with 97% of those families falling 200% or below the federal poverty level. After launching 2 ESA programs, both in Indiana and Utah, I've learned there are some consistent components of executing a scholarship program, regardless of the program size. I'd like to focus on technology, marketing, and customer support. A program manager is responsible for developing a seamless application experience for families that guides them through the process of validating eligibility and understanding program requirements. Additionally, employing generative AI chatbots and easy navigate.
Begin to wrap up your testimony, please.
Easy to navigate help center and intuitive search platforms to improve parent experience. Within the first 6 months of implementation, we maintained customer service satisfaction rate of 92%. Overall, what this teaches us is that families want choice. Studies show that around the country, parents are overwhelmingly in favor of educational choice. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Norton Rainey.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and to the few most important remaining members of this committee who have stayed here for a long day. Thank you so much for your time and your patience. And also I want to thank you for your passion for this issue. I know there's varying opinions here related to how we solve education in the state of Texas, but here's one thing we can agree upon. We all care deeply about our children. And speaking of our children, the mandate for ACE scholarships since our founding 25 years ago was to serve the most needy families, the lowest income parents who are looking for an opportunity for their child to attend the school that is right for them in grades K through 12. In over 25 years, we have served more than 100,000 low-income children to go to the school of their choice. And the results are absolutely undeniable. And I think it's important that we focus on some data because I've heard some panels earlier and some people who said there's just not enough data to show that school choice works. Well, there is. And we have empirical evidence. This is not a theory. This is a program that absolutely works. And when we take a kid and we provide them with a partial tuition scholarship to go to their school, they graduate at 95% plus rates. Their proficiency rates in math and reading in 4th and 8th grade are knocking the competition out of the park. They are graduating, they're persisting to college, they're finding jobs, they're creating a very positive impact in our society that is desperately needed for our kids. It's undeniable when you allow parents to choose the environment that's right for their kids, they thrive. And let's be real, that's America. America was founded as a country in a democratic society that empowers people to make choices that are right for them, from the neighborhoods they live in, to the cars they buy, to the homes they purchase. But here's our harsh reality. Too many families are submitted to a zip code where they're subjected to failing schools, and if that's the case, they really don't have a chance of success, which is why passing an ESA bill in Texas is critical and why we urge you to do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Terry Kosabud.
Yeah, I'm Terry Kosabud. I am a member of Grandparents for Public Schools, and I am not a billionaire. I can't contribute millions of dollars to somebody's political campaign. I'm not able to do that. But I live in a state, the same state you all live in, that is the 8th largest economy on earth. We had $2 trillion GDP in 2022. Wow, that's amazing. We were economic leaders in this state. But if we take a look a little further at some other statistics, we only are at 39 to 44th ranking in the United States for our funding of kids in public school. You know, I actually agree with what some of these people say about the importance of giving kids opportunities. But you know something? The only reason those parents are looking for educational savings plans or vouchers is because the public school is underfunded and the parents are trying to find an escape hatch. We need to properly fund our public schools first, by all means, and we haven't done that. So instead of looking to outsiders who don't live in Texas and are contributing large amounts of money, we should look to ourselves. We have the money here. We're the 8th largest economy on earth. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. All right, Lisa Hermes.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, representatives who are still here. As he mentioned, my name is Lisa Hermes, and I'm the president of the McKinney Chamber of Commerce. In my role, working with the business community, we recognize the importance the important role a strong school district plays in creating a thriving community. Not only is there a correlation between strong public schools and a safe, vibrant community, there are long-term implications to a skilled and educated workforce in the future. Creating a talent pipeline starts as early as pre-kindergarten and continues beyond high school. In a recent analysis we conducted of our business community, workforce was their #1 issue. Across the board, whether it was a small, medium, or large business, they said recruiting and retaining a talented workforce was their top challenge. While supporting our local ISDs may not solve the problem overnight, we know it is crucial to properly fund and support public education as a system that will continue to educate the future workforce. There's also immediate benefits as well. It's not a secret that strong public schools aid in economic development. When companies are looking to relocate or expand their operations, they look first to the health of our community, with the success of public schools as a major factor. Texas has benefited from investments investments in the past, both of our infrastructure and of education, and that's led to our explosive growth and our strong economy. So let's just keep that going. As you've been discussing and debating today over educational savings accounts or vouchers or however you want to frame that topic, we do appreciate the fact that you are looking to other states for data because we've done the same. When we looked at other states and did our research, we saw that student achievement did not necessarily improve with vouchers or ESAs. The data hasn't been conclusive, and it hasn't been shown to be so today. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Members, any questions for this panel? All right, Representative. Okay, Representative Cunningham, and then we'll go back to Harrison.
Okay. First of all, where's my SOB lady? Did she leave? There she is, back there in the back. Thank you for what you said on the last there. I totally agree. Being a former involved in education for 25 plus years, 12 as a school board member, yes, we have a problem. But my ACE folks, you guys have been, how long have you guys been in business? Is it a decade, 2 decades, how long?
25 years.
25 years. So in those 25 years, could you tell me, well, how do I want to say it? Some insight. Could you give me some insight from what you've gained with the experiences, particularly as it concerns the parents? Could you share that with me right quick?
I'd be happy to. So 25 years has taught us, and also observations from other choice programs around the country, is that when you empower a parent with the choice to put their child in the school that they desire, the kid will thrive. They will flourish. And it's not only good for them, it's also good for their families. We do a lot of testing on our kids. We have quantitative and qualitative data. And I mentioned earlier that our kids are performing quite well academically. Their proficiency rates in math and reading are off the charts. But here's some data we don't talk about often, which is really critical that everyone understand. When you do qualitative data on our families, we see that the parents are more involved with their kids because of the quality environment they're attending in a character-based school where their children are learning. The parents are helping their children with homework for the first time. They're eating dinner together. Their children are playing less video games. It becomes an amazing environment in their family, and also they're transforming their communities as a result of their children doing well. And it's also really critical, too, that people understand this, because I've heard this often about the fact that we can't afford to provide an ESA to a low-income student because private schools are not attainable. That's just not true. Private schools are extraordinarily affordable. The average tuition for a private school is $10,000 per year. The elite private schools are vastly different. That is a very small percentage of our private schools. The majority of our private schools do not cost a lot, but here's the great thing about it. If you take a family that's making $30,000 per year and you give them a $2,000 scholarship, which is what we do in our privately funded program, that parent is also committing $2,000 per year because they care so much about their child being educated. So my whole point is that when you have a motivated parent who wants their kid to do well, when you give them a scholarship, they will thrive.
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Representative Harrison.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This for first, sorry, Mr. Names. The first two of you there with ACE. There's been a lot of questions, especially early on in the hearing today, on the perspective of the students. There was somehow almost this like implicit bifurcation between a parent's interest and a student's interest. I don't really see that divergence there, to be honest with you. In terms of if we should, as policymakers from the state, align our interests with that of what I think is the interest of parents, which is maximizing student educational outcomes. What has, in your experience, been the impact on students and their families who have chosen to take advantage of ESAs?
Absolutely, I can answer that. So in my experience, We do have actually students that are here to testify and students that have spoken out. Of course, maybe not the 5-year-old students, but as students get a little bit older and they're empowered to speak out about their experience moving from a public school to a private school, if that school was not serving them properly, they're excited about their future, excited about the potential that they have, whether that is college bound or not. We have experienced students moving into trades or going right into the workforce after utilizing an education scholarship account.
Have you seen students that were having academic challenges at the ISDs have more academic flourishing in a private or other type of school?
Absolutely, and it doesn't even come down just solely to academics. I've experienced students who were experiencing bullying in their public schools, and so their parents made the difficult decision to switch them, but ultimately the students wound up flourishing because they were in an embracive and inclusive environment.
Yeah, so let's talk, so real quick on that, because we talk about education, like that's obviously most important, but there are other factors going on that could contribute to a student's success, such as bullying or others. I mean, a well-to-do parent, a family with significant financial means, if their student is experiencing bullying or academic challenges in their school, what does that family do?
They move to a different school.
Yeah,
they have the choice.
Right, so they could move, right? Because right now, school choice is relegated through housing markets in Texas, which is, I'll pose it as a question, is that a terribly equitable way to be allocating education resources?
Not particularly when you see a student that's not thriving in that educational environment.
Right. So what are some of the reasons, so you mentioned a couple, I mean, what are the reasons parents leave? Because I've asked this to several witnesses today, and I basically have been given some kind of a variation of parents don't know any better, they're incompetent, or they fell prey to propaganda, or the government should choose for them. Why, in your experience, do you see parents switching from public schools to take advantage of ESA programs?
The number one reason is bullying. That is the one reason why they leave. They obviously care deeply about education. They care many times also about faith for their kids. But the number one reason comes down to bullying, where they can be in a safe environment. I also want to be very clear. We are not anti-public schools. People think we are. That is a misnomer. We are not. I'm a proud product of a wonderful public school, and it served me very well. We are anti-mediocre education, and the education that does not serve a child well, which is not good for the state of Texas and for the United States of America. That is what we are against, and that's why we seek to have every single child in America have a great education that's world class.
100%. Couldn't agree more. In fact, I would argue that competition in education would do in education what it does to every other sector of our economy, which is over time you should see quality improve. In addition to prices going down, unfortunately, we see the exact opposite in education. But yeah, no, to be pro-public education is to be pro-school choice. Do you think, because there have been many witnesses say something to the contrary, do you think parents are capable of making the best decision for which educational setting would be best for their child, or are they not capable of that?
Absolutely. I have full faith in parents, and I'm hard-pressed to identify any parents in my teaching career that didn't have the best interest of their students at heart. Many of the passionate parents that spoke today are speaking out precisely because of that, because they have the best interest of their child at heart.
50% of our families that are served in our program are Hispanic families. Many of our families are immigrants from other countries. We have families who are African Americans at a very high percentage. These are families who are looking for a better life for their child, and these parents will do anything it takes. And when I first began working at age 22 years ago, I remember being in one of our African American schools and hearing the pastor address the students and saying that I recognize the challenges you face in your neighborhood, but we are going to educate you and make sure that we prepare you so that when you go back to your neighborhood someday, you're a contributing member to your neighborhood, not a person who's taken. And that is really the essence of what we do, is empowering families to do great things for their kids.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad you said that. I've heard so many apologists today for the government education monopoly, proponents of keeping kids trapped in failing schools, make the argument that, you know what, because an ESA isn't equal to, the full price of student funding. So in Texas, for example, it's around $15,000, $16,000. Most of the ESAs that have been contemplated in Texas are $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. They make the argument that, this is only going to benefit the rich. This isn't possibly going to help benefit low or middle income families. Do you have any response to those critics?
Sure. You heard the panel earlier talking about the state of Utah and the launch of the ESA program. When the ESA program was launched in Utah, there were close to 30,000 parents who expressed an interest in the program for their kids. And as you heard today, the 10,000 students who are benefiting that program are from the lowest income sectors. So when we hear people say this is a program for the wealthy, It's just not true, because that is not the case. You have the lowest income kids in our program that are benefiting. If you're a wealthy family, you're not looking for a government handout. As a wealthy family, you will do whatever you want from the neighborhood you live in. That is not your priority in your life. But it is a major priority among the lowest income parents who are desperate, who are stuck.
So are you basically saying wealthy families have school choice right now?
Absolutely.
Poor families do not. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So what about the final question? There has been said and asserted, just as gospel fact, more times today than I could possibly count, that school choice would destroy public education. In the states you've operated in, or in any of your observations of ESA programs anywhere across the country, in any of the states where parental empowerment and education freedom have passed, have the public school system been, and again, I'm going to use their words, been destroyed?
None. And that's a fact.
And funding has increased in those public schools, and the per pupil revenue per child has also increased when you have school choice programs. And our belief is that all boats rise. We want our public schools to flourish and be great. I know there's a debate here in Texas as well about our rural schools. And we recognize there are not as many private options out there, but if you still empower families, whether it's homeschool or private school, let a parent choose and do what's right for them. And our belief is that if a public school is serving their kid well, you're not going to leave. Because why would you leave a system that's serving you well when your education is already top notch?
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Representative Hinojosa.
So I'm a little bit confused about this Vermont program because it's a year old, and I hear it's a universal program, but then at the same time I hear it's limited to kids who are economically disadvantaged. So I want to kind of take that out of the equation because it's a little brand new program. Other than that program, please name for me which are the programs, which states have a universal taxpayer-funded voucher where most of those taxpayer-funded vouchers don't go to kids who are already in private schools. Which states?
So just to clarify, the Utah Fits All Scholarship Program is universal, but there's clear prioritization for lower income students. So while it is a universal program, the legislature has appropriated for us to prioritize students that are 200% or below the federal poverty level first and foremost.
Okay. Then maybe you and I have a different understanding of universal. Let's put that small program aside. And any other state that has a universal taxpayer-funded voucher, what state doesn't have a majority of the families that were already in private schools?
Arizona.
Arizona doesn't.
West Virginia.
Okay. Arizona and Arizona, where they are facing now over $1 billion budget deficit. That's your
I don't administer
example.
that program.
Okay.
And my understanding is that that data is incorrect. I spoke to someone after I heard that today, and that data we believe is false.
That data has been in every kind of credible news outlet that I have seen. So that's news to me that would be false data. I want to ask the representative from the chamber, your businesses that choose your community to live in it, and you talked about how important it is that your community have a school district that is quality, and that's an important factor in business decision and people making a decision to move to your community. We've heard one of the reasons that families choose to leave their public schools is because of bullying. Do you have any, or does your community, does your chamber have any belief that maybe what we should do is create welcoming environments for all public school students so that nobody has to deal with bullying at their public school?
Yes, I think that we would agree with that. Part of our legislative priorities as a business community is that we are also against any kind of discriminatory legislation that would alienate anyone from the workplace. So I think that would translate also to our school systems.
I think that we could really benefit from having a whole hearing on discipline in our public schools, because if that is an issue that I hear repeatedly as a concern from parents, and it seems to me that rather than give people ways out of a school system where they feel like they're not getting bullying addressed, that we should address the bullying in our neighborhood public schools. And so
I would agree, and I
be an
think it would be
advocate for
very
that.
challenging for some of our parents if that was an issue for them to leave, because I'm not sure where the schools are in Texas, that private schools that are $10,000, but I know in our area, it starts out at least $14,000 onwards up to about $40,000 a year per student. So I'm kind of confused about where some of these numbers are coming from.
Representative Hinojosa, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the bullying should be addressed, and I think discipline is a significant issue that all schools should address. There are major hurdles for public schools in their disciplinary actions, and you find in private schools that is not the case because private schools are autonomous institutions, and so they have the ability to discipline their students, and you find that there is order and rigor, and students are successful.
I would also add to that for some families, while I agree with you absolutely about the programs that need to be in public schools, I've seen them implemented myself with great efficiency and effect. Some families can't wait. Their child is suffering, whether that's because of bullying or because of academics. They don't have the time to wait for that school to make a certain improvement if a program isn't already implemented, and that's why they're forced to make the choice to move their student to either a place in a community that they're safe or that they're going to flourish academically.
Well, I would
if
say
they
that
can
no
afford to.
family can wait for a safe and welcoming environment to learn in, but that's why we're the state legislature. We can remove those barriers so that all students feel safe and welcome in their school environment. And that's why we're having this hearing.
I hope you can accomplish that. I think that's a lofty thing that you should be seeking to do. And I think also, if you look at an ESA bill here, I think to your question about a universal program, is you have the ability at this body to make sure that lower income families are receiving preferential treatment. Obviously, our program believes very much so in serving the lowest income families, so we agree.
All right, members, any more questions? All right, Ms. Hermes, just
Yes.
so in the business community in McKinney,
Yes.
is it the concern of the impact on the public schools, or is it concern because they wish the ESA was a larger amount to match the cost of the private schools? What is the actual concern?
The
But if
concern
it's a
is-
workforce issue, it's about a well-trained,
That's correct, yeah, so.
and that
so-
an ESA would impact, if
Correct.
kids left and learned more, that would be detrimental
Two
to the...
things. That would be one concern, is kids leaving and the impact that could have on a school. And then the other concern is businesses are generally very fiscally conservative, and we've seen that many times, including in Arizona. I believe the data will show that Arizona, New Hampshire, and Wisconsin, anywhere from 75% to 89% of the students using vouchers already attended a public school. So while they may have prioritized and said that they were going to give low-income students the first right to apply for that, there's so many other challenges and barriers for low-income students, not just the debated amount that I think that the legislator has given before. Like I said, I mean, it's at least $14,000, in private tuition in one of our local private schools. How are the students going to get? So if you're low income, how are you going to get to school? Transportation, all the other things, all the other barriers to that.
So basically the Chamber of Commerce in McKinney is just against it philosophically.
Right. We do not believe that diverting public dollars to private institutions is the way to go.
Y'all for the Pell Grant?
I'm sorry?
Are you for the Pell Grant? Which
We
is
have
public dollars diverted to private higher education for workforce development and things like that. Y'all are okay with that?
That is not something that we have discussed as a board in our priorities. We have been focused more on our K through 12 and making sure that our public schools are well funded.
So any child that leaves a certain school district defunds it in essence, correct?
If the child is leaving the school district, they are taking those allocated dollars from that school.
I lived in a certain school district, and then I drove to another public school district because I felt like that was the best opportunity for my kids. Was I defunding my local public schools by getting in my truck every morning and driving my kids to another school district that accepted them and checked them out, basically, made sure they were
first of all,
academically successful, all these barriers. So was I defunding my local school district when I did that?
First of all, I've never used the word defunded. You did ask me the question. You were still funding public education going to a different school district. You had a choice, you had parental choice of where to send your kids within the public school system in the state of Texas. We already have a charter school system. There is parental choice that is already included, that is governed by the state of Texas with the transparency and the accountabilities that are put into place.
Would your organization support open enrollment, where a child could go to any school, any district, if the parent could provide transportation?
I do think that could be definitely something that they would support. Yes.
You realize that's basically what I did without that being in law. So it's a distinction without a difference. If a child does not go to the district in which they reside, then technically then they will not be funded on that child that doesn't show up there, correct? As long as it stays in the public sector, is that what you're saying?
That's correct, and with all due respect, I think that is how I answered your question. I didn't say you defunded school.
Well, I mean, theoretically, if a kid doesn't show up and they're, they don't go where they're quote zoned to go, then they do. I guess technically they don't receive funding for them. I just always like that argument, and I guess the other thing that I always ask is, really amongst all our public school friends, my wife's an assistant superintendent of schools in public school, worked there for 32 years. My mom was a teacher, my grandma was a teacher. I don't, what I don't understand is I don't know why we are absolutely certain with giving an opportunity, a small opportunity for kids that need it the most, of why we think the bulk of families are not going to choose their public schools. What makes them think they won't choose you? I mean, we did. I mean, most people will. And, we had a bill that funded public schools to a level they haven't been funded for in the history of Texas. And accountability reform and assessment reform and special ed funding and all the recommendations from all these commissions were all put before the body, and it was rejected because of a small number of kids where their parents could absolutely exercise their God-given right to put them in the best environment for them to learn. The young Army family in Killeen, Texas, that has 2 children with autism, that are working 2 jobs to try to send their kids to an environment where they can learn, where they can thrive, and somehow we are, that is a threat to public schools. I think that is a misguided notion, and parents matter. And, good schools and a well-educated workforce can look like a lot of things, and there needs to be lots of tools in the toolbox for parents. I think your businesses like lots of tools in the toolbox. I'm a business owner, 30 years. I like options, and I would hope that they would do that.
Funding for public schools?
I'm sorry?
Couldn't you just simply increase funding?
Yeah, I tried. I filed a bill to put $7 billion in public schools and over $30 billion in, yeah.
Is that enough?
What? Is that?
Texas is a leader in the economics of it all. We're 8th largest economy. Can't we fund our public schools better than being at 39th ranking in the United States?
Well,
I'm hearing about my school system that my grandkids are going to, are basically having to make cutbacks because they don't have enough funding. In the 8th largest economy on earth, we can't afford. Can't you guys, as our representatives, do something to say we need more money in the public schools? I don't have anything wrong with what these guys said. I appear to be opposing that, but actually, I believe too you should try to help your kids. But the bottom line is, you guys as our representatives should be trying to make sure there's enough money that the public school succeeds. Those parents are trying to go here because the public school is failing because you're not giving them adequate funds. You're underfunding our public school.
I don't believe that's the entirety why people choose to leave a public school.
Can I just leave you with one story? I met recently with one of our major employers in our community, and it was about a different program that we were wanting to start to help them when they are attracting and retaining some of the top level employees in their business, and it's kind of like a concierge program. And he said, well, with all due respect, I don't have to sell McKinney because people have already looked up your school system, and the public schools in McKinney are great. They want to move here. And he didn't say because you've got ESAs or you've got great private schools. He said our public schools. And so I think from that position, that's why it's important to our business community. And I do appreciate that there's different ways of looking at how we're going to best properly educate our workforce. But that's why our chamber does support our public schools, and we want to make sure that they are properly funded, that all the discussions that were happening today about curriculum, I thought were way more important than talking about educational savings accounts and vouchers. Let's give our parents, I'm a parent, great options by having a great school system. So thank you. I appreciate the work you're doing.
I think we can have it all. I think that the reality that you can't, that you have to pick one or the other. I don't think it's an either or thing. But I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask?
Representative Hefner.
So everybody keeps saying properly fund. What's that number?
That's a good question. And that's, I think, there are probably way more intelligent people in this room that can answer that question besides myself. But I can tell you that when you look at how much we are funding in comparison to other states, that is something that, we're not being competitive, and we're falling behind
So
in that
what's
area.
the number?
I don't have that number. I'm not
Somebody
qualified
needs to bring
give
us
you
a
that
number. Because all we hear is more and more and more. All we hear is it's not enough. We do more and more every year. That's proven in the slides given to us today. Somebody needs to bring us a number.
Be a leader. Yes, you can.
You're the
Be
one
a
saying you
leader.
need more money. How
Okay.
much?
I'm a grandpa. I don't know the number either.
I'm
neither
gonna be
does
a grandpa in
But
October.
listen, be a leader. You can compare us to, there's 49 other states. Compare us to one of those other states. We're at the 39th level for crying
If
out loud.
everybody's going to come to us and beat the heck out of us
I
about improperly funding our schools, bring us a number.
That very fair point, and I would say that's probably a better question to have asked Commissioner Morath while he was here, because
He's not a policymaker.
But he offers the recommendations to this.
Okay.
Committee.
I'd love to see a number.
Representative Hinojosa.
It's okay. Last legislative session and in every special session, the number that we kept hearing was the number to bring us to just 2019 spending power was an increase of $1,000 per student. Just to deal with inflation, it's gone up since then because we didn't do anything. So there was a number that we talked about repeatedly that came from the comptroller, and that was the number of last legislative session. It is more now.
Well, a lot of my schools were going to get like $1,700 per kid with that bill had passed.
I don't know which bill.
$1,700
I'm not
per
sure
kid.
which bill you're talking about.
The one that had the ESAs in it. The
The
funding
one
bill.
that the chairman pulled down when the ESA got
When
stripped.
you all stripped the ESAs, yes.
That the chairman pulled down off the floor. That one.
When you stripped the ESAs.
Right, but we didn't get a chance to vote on that bill.
Well, you could have.
When the chairman pulls it
If
down,
you
how do
cared
we?
more about stripping the ESAs than you cared about funding the schools.
We shouldn't have stripped something we didn't believe in.
You
But-
said you wanted to fund the schools.
Well, we didn't get a chance to because it was pulled from the floor.
It was right there in the bill.
But the bill was pulled off the floor.
We had
But actually, that was not my, Chairman, I wanted to correct the record.
Let's go back to the panel.
Yes, let's go back to the panel,
We'll talk
please.
after the deal.
Let's go back to the panel. For ACE, I asked which of the taxpayer-funded voucher programs don't have a majority of families that were already in private schools, and you said Arizona, and I just looked it up, and it's 75 to 80% of those families were already in private school.
I don't administer that program.
Okay, but you just offered it, and so
As
you
a universal program. I
Okay.
don't have
The
the data
question-
for states I don't administer.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
just to be
Representative.
clear, the question was two parts. Which is a universal that does not have most of the enrollees already in private schools? And Arizona does not fit that bill.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I was answering on behalf of the universal programs. I don't administer those.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Cunningham.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to get in on this thing late, so I'm just going to go ahead and say, when we say what is the number, we know that in 2021, the number was like 75 billion. 2023, it was over 80 billion. So if we're talking about what we cost to fund, so we're already probably talking like 100 billion We need to find a number. What we fund for public education, it was $70 billion in 2021, and just in 2023, it was over $80 billion. So we already know what we're talking about. It's a big number. It's a big number. But we need, as my colleague said, bring us a number. And that's talking about for all these 1,000 school districts, and everybody's getting funded differently. The main thing, and I'll end it on this, is we just need to revamp all of public ed because Robin Hood does not work. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
If you want a number in private education, I think you're talking about per pupil in Texas for public around 15,000. If you pass an ESA program in the state at 8 to 10,000 per student, the private schools and the money that would be used for homeschools would make a world of a difference, and that would be plenty of money to help out these kids have the education of their choice and do exceedingly well.
All right, any more questions? All right, Representative Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, panel. Yeah, I appreciated actually my colleague up here asking about a number because we budget based on numbers, not words. And I'll tell you, all of last session when I was on this committee, I don't know how many times I tried to get an answer of somebody to define what it means to fully fund it, because the data that's often cited to shows like 39th, 40th, it's highly misleading. It focuses almost exclusively on the basic allotment. It also doesn't factor in other things such as like cost of living and various deltas between various regions of the country. So it's incredibly a misleading number. And I also just think we need to stipulate for the record that every teacher union and public education lobbyist in the state of Texas opposed Chairman Buckley and other efforts to increase public education funding last session. That has to be stipulated for the record. But here's my question. Even if we're going to talk qualitatively for a second, like you can't define. You came here, and I appreciate it. Appreciate your testimony. Appreciate your heart. I believe you want the best for students. So do I. So does everybody on this panel. So does everybody in the Texas legislature. I believe you. But let's take we can't quantify it because you don't know the number. You came here and told us we got to raise the number. You don't know what to. You don't know what to. Not one person here today has known the number. Not one person all last year knew the number. Well, we're talking about the panel, and that changed all last session too. We had that discussion for a year. Appreciate it. If we agreed on a number that you said at X we have fully funded public education, would you support us enacting a truly universal ESA program to let every parent choose where to send their kid?
Yeah. You know,
You would.
I would like to see that the kids in Texas do well. I would like to see this group put that as a high priority, which would mean, number one, you got to fix the public education system and fund that properly.
Which by the way, everybody on this panel wants the best for our public education system. Everybody on this panel.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we
Absolutely.
I'm a grandpa. I'm not an educator. I'm hearing just by listening to social media about millions of dollars being given to certain individuals to do certain things. It sure sounds to me like a bribe. Oh, I didn't say that. So the bottom line is fix public education. And by all means, if bullying is a problem, I sympathize with this. I think that's an excellent solution. But the first thing to fix is public education.
All right, then let's close. By the way, I appreciate you saying that if we fully funded public education, you would be allowed school choice supported. Did I hear you right?
Yeah.
Okay, I actually appreciate that. Thank you. I really sincerely appreciate that. Most people have said no to that question, so thank you. But I just got to ask one final question to the two of you here on the end, to both of you, because if funding is so important, why is it the case that when per pupil spending has been higher, education outcomes are lower? I'll phrase the inverse of that. Why is it the case that in the state of Texas, education outcomes were higher when per pupil funding was lower?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that our organization did support and thank the legislator for the funding that has been coming through. In 2018, the legislator did put a lot more funding into public education, and so we were highly supportive of that act. Since that time, there has been, as you all know, as we've talked to ad nauseum, the inflation and all the other things that are impacting our schools. That's, I think, where people are coming from asking for the additional funding to fully fund public education.
No, I hear that, but the question is, last year,
Yes.
the whole data this morning, if you could look at the last biennium that we've got the data for, from this official
Yes.
government data, we spent a significant amount of money less in the prior biennium on public education per pupil, so adjusted per pupil, and yet academic outcomes on both English and in particular mathematics were higher.
So first of all,
so based on that, how is it possible
I don't know
that this
that
is
we're
purely
going
a
to agree
funding
on
problem?
the number of funding because basic student allotment has not increased. And so the numbers that you were
But
sharing
we spent a lot of time.
earlier,
The basic allotment is less than half of the per pupil expenditure. The total amount that we have spent as a state on education has increased. It's never been higher than this. And yet when it was lower, objectively, education outcomes were higher.
And again, the basic student allotment, which is the most flexible, that allows for the schools to be able to fund the teachers in the classroom, which we heard earlier is the number one driver for increasing student educational attainments. Is so if you're not
the description
and
of
the
basic
other
allotment.
and the other funding that you have is good, but is also is already allocated to other aspects of public schools. There's not the flexibility to put that towards the teachers.
I appreciate it. I think we made the point. Thank you, Chair.
All right.
I think
Any more?
Your information is so isolated. I'm not sure how. You did a good job, by the way. I don't know how we can answer that question. There's just a couple of comments in the midair here, but I would need the background to understand that. To answer
It's
that
online on
question.
TEA's website. It's from their last TEA official report.
But then it's a complex human situation here. I don't know.
All right. Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for the back and forth.
Thank you.
I too am a grandpa like you, and I want nothing more than my kids to have every tool in the toolbox that they need for those two boys to get whatever they need in the future. That's it. That's what I care about, and that's what I want for Texas. And we do need to fund our schools, public schools, and I believe we can walk and chew gum because it's not an either-or deal. But thank you. Passionate grandpa, I get you. All right. Chair calls Vance Ginn, Carl Jones, Chloe Latham Sykes, and Sarah Mbaya.